One could only hear shouts that there was a threat of infiltration. You could also see the corpses of soldiers. They knew the Phantom was coming, but the Phantom had already appeared behind him. Before they could do anything, they were killed. Well, this man's name is Gu Cheng, and he's been told to speed up. He swore to Su Hong to protect his wife and daughter, but his actions led to their demise. The organization will surely avenge their deaths. He was ordered to return immediately. It was the first time he apologized for not following orders, after which he threw off the earpiece and walked away. The man with white hair seemed a little relieved that he and the Phantom had finally met. They searched 8 countries, 16 cities, and 23 leads. And finally they found this man. The man asked, "But what are they going to do next? Are they thinking of killing him?" He kindly explained to the Phantom that there were some amazing changes happening in this world right now, but he won't be able to see them with his own eyes. Though he had no equal in martial arts, alas, all things come to an end. But that bullet didn't hit him. Mentally, he apologized to Su Hang for not being able to take care of his family, but at least he will avenge their deaths. But he only said goodbye to Gu Cheng. He didn't even realize what had just happened. Suddenly, he woke up to Shu Yuan shouting that Shu Yuan had bought the wrong thing. There was a fist in front of his face. Well, he didn't let himself get hit and instead threw a punch himself, whereupon he felled the man. The blonde man wanted to oppose. After all, he didn't understand Shu Yuanyu's behavior, but he let him do so. He was ready to punch this guy, but suddenly, they were interrupted by a girl talking about Shu Wen hitting someone. They looked at them in shock. The protagonist didn't realize what the hell this place was at all. He's clearly not in the main headquarters of a terrorist organization. This is definitely some kind of delusion. The last thing he remembers is his death. But suddenly in his mind, he saw another person's memories. This boy's name is Shu Yuan, and he is 17 years old. He lives in Lingyuan City. His parents died 3 years ago in a car accident, so he's being raised by his aunt. He's been beaten up ever since. He's a real sissy and a wuss. He goes to a third city high school. His grades are poor and his classmates despise him, but that's his own recollection. He realized that he was actually in another person's body. The man reached out to him, asking what he had done. But Shu Yuan hit him in the face with his foot. It's like he's been replaced. First he hits his classmates, and now he dares to hit his teacher. Has he forgotten who he is? He explained that his code name is Gu Cheng, who is a fighter of an elite secret unit. Call sign Phantom. He apparently decided to make a joke in this situation, so the man decided to repeat it for those who don't understand. Zheng Hui will come and give him 33 misfortunes. The teacher then told him to report his behavior to the disciplinary committee promptly. He asked for permission to apply because he did not know where the committee was located. The teacher began to get angry, talking about how he was about to stand in front of the main gate of the school to let everyone know what a fool he was. The girls wanted to go quickly to see what was at the gate. Some didn't know who this guy was or what he was doing, but others found out that it was Shu Yuan from the 3rd grade. She heard that he was punished for beating up a teacher. That's why he's standing here. There were rumors that he was peeping in the ladies' room, and how the girls were changing clothes. That's disgusting. He realized that this body was very weak, can't even stand up properly. He is in someone else's body, and according to his memories, it is the year 2021. Su Hang's wife will be killed next year, and he remembers that she lived in a town called Lin Yuan. He used to send them money to keep them out of trouble, but they didn't trust him much, so he didn't really know how to find them. And now he's not even Gu Cheng. First, we need to understand what ultimately happened. The teacher was surprised that Shu Yuan was still standing there. He reported that no new orders or directives have been received, so he continues to stand. The teacher asked if he'd always been this fucked up, or if it had just started now. Everyone had already dispersed half an hour ago, so he told him to stop fooling around and go. He's gone. His new house is kind of that way. There was a girl riding a bicycle who couldn't stop, and right on the road was the Shu Yuan. A rock caused her bike to fall off, and she flew straight at the protagonist. Still, the landing was painful. After that, she saw a kid with blood on him. She couldn't believe she had hit a man. Besides, he was her classmate. The girl wondered if he was alive at all, but he got up as if nothing had happened. She inquired if he didn't need to go to the hospital. He shouldn't worry because she has a very well-to-do family. And since she made the mistake, the bills are not a problem. Shu Yuan replied that it was fine and let her go where she was going. She noticed his nose was bleeding. It was her fault. She wanted to ride her bike home with her other classmates, but she never learned how to do it until now. He replied that there are no bad soldiers in this world. There are only lazy losers. She had no idea what he was talking about at all. He then began to approach her. She asked what he was going to do. Before she knew it, the girl had vanished. It's imperative that we find Sasha. With her frail physique, she's the only one who knows how to get into trouble. Suddenly, she heard the guy yell that she should keep her pace. First the left foot, then the right, one after the other. She must not forget her balance, and she should take another lap. She was utterly bewildered. The girl immediately approached them. She also asked what they were doing here. Sasha replied that she was doing fine. In addition, she seemed to have learned to ride a bicycle by herself. It was all thanks to this man, whose name she didn't know. The girl said that it was Shu Yuan, who was her classmate. Sasha asked if she really knew him. Scum and bastard is putting it mildly. To say she hates him is to say nothing. But she still thanked him for teaching Sasha how to ride a bike. But now they had to go. Sasha, however, needed just a moment. It thanked Shu Yuan for the lesson. Everyone she'd met before was constantly afraid she'd break something. That's why they were always overly lenient and wouldn't let her do anything dangerous. Today was the first time she'd been to a real strict training session. It was also the first time she experienced the feeling that she had learned something. Xu Yuan wondered what she was thanking him for. She had done everything by herself after all. He said goodbye to the tenacious fighter. This guy is not at all what they say he is. Suddenly, someone grabbed Sasha. They took notice right away. Sasha told Sue and not to chase her, but to run straight to her father. He immediately recognized the name Sue, and afterward, he began to notice that her look was similar to her father's. There was a man behind her who wanted to hit her with a bat, but the protagonist didn't let that happen. She couldn't believe he'd hit a motorcyclist with one leg kick. Well, there's no time to think about morality. She should help Sasha. Zhu Yuan wanted to help her. The girl thanked him for it, but it was none of his business. He can't afford to sue and put himself in that kind of danger alone. Her safety is very much his concern from now on, too. Such words embarrassed her. She asked who he was going to defend there. He just thinks she doesn't know how to drive a motorcycle. That's why Sue agreed to it. They arrived at an abandoned building. Sue and asked if he wasn't the least bit curious as to why schoolgirls were being stolen in the middle of the day. Shu Yuan replied that her family had money. Usually, she was always picked up by a private driver after school. But today, she had managed to get a ride on a bicycle. The girl began to blame herself for not being able to help her, but her main character said not to forget her head with this. It gets in the way of thinking through a plan. Sue and completely misunderstood his character. Afterward, the guy told her to stay here and wait. She wondered what Shu Yuan was up to. He began to quietly and quickly get rid of people. Sue didn't understand how he could catch on to what needed to be done. It must be true what they said about the special agent. She decided to go after him. The three men looked at the girl. It was like she was watching without fear. The man asked if she had completely lost her fear. Sasha asked what she should be afraid of. It's obvious to a fool that she was kidnapped for money. And her family has money. They don't have to worry about the amount of the ransom. As long as they don't touch the girl, she can guarantee that her father won't raise the alarm. Let her ask how she could guarantee such a thing. Her favorite dad's biggest sticking point was her safety. If there was an alarm, they'd be angry and want to blow off steam on her. They'd just have to bring her back safe and sound, get their ransom, and let them go on their way. And everybody stays to their own devices. Otherwise, if she continues to be intimidated, they probably won't get out of this story alive. Is that really how her father taught her to talk? Sasha replied that she wanted to stay alive, and they wanted money. That's not a bad deal. And while we're talking about the deal, she likes to say that running a business is as simple as breathing. There's nothing wrong with a pleasant collaboration. Suddenly smoke enveloped them. They could only hear the groans of pain of the other people. The man decided to intervene. Zhu Wen noticed it and tried to block that fist. She never would have thought this guy was that cool. The rest of the people who surrounded her were knocked out as well. Sue and Brix appeared behind her, asking if she was okay. She asked for an explanation of how they got here, but they'll talk about it when they get out. But suddenly they didn't notice Shu Yuan's fall. Apparently, they are still holding out hope that they can get out of here. How unexpected it was to get a couple punches in from a bunch of feisty kids. He shouted Sue and ran, after which he immediately attacked the man. Even though the boy was dead, he had a first-class fighting technique. The man caught himself thinking that his fighting style reminded him of someone. He asked who the kid was. The protagonist replied that he was an ordinary middle school student. He realized that the capacity of this body was already at its limit. Phantom had wounded him once long ago, but now he's not just a kidnapper anymore. He's the devil. And now he's finally got a chance to fight the Phantom boy. He can feed his inner demon. He informed the kid that this fighting technique of his was painfully familiar to him, and the protagonist dodged that fist. They all continued their fight, and now the kid's been cornered, but someone hit the man. It was so, and by asking what he was doing, he wondered why the hell she was still here. She should get out of here as fast as she could. She has her own head on her shoulders, so he should not tell her what to do. Besides, it is not customary in the family to leave a comrade in distress. His mind immediately flashed back to his friend, who had said that the Sus did not abandon their own in battle. After the Dryad died, he vowed never to involve others in his problems again. He would never want to put his daughter in danger. The girl talked about being able to protect herself. She promised her father that while he was away, she would take care of her loved ones. He decided to help them deal with it. The man started attacking the girl. The protagonist learned the secret technique of Suhanga hand-to-hand combat. Even though she had blocked his fist, it still pushed her back. The guy yelled for her to use the curtain ching, and the girl didn't understand at all how he could know the name of her family's secret technique. She kicked him. After that, the protagonist used a stone grip. The girl delivered an elbow strike to his head. Is he really trying to get into her life this way? He told her to use the jump strong branches. She thought about the fact that she liked even hearing his commands. After which he used a butterfly grip. The kid told her to use bullhorns. After which, they both struck for the commander. The man couldn't even imagine that he had just been beaten by 2 school children. He felt as if time itself had turned against him. For some reason, the girl had the feeling that he was just like her father. The protagonist only thought that he was a complete wimp, because even with this body, he couldn't protect anyone. Sasha started kicking him for kidnapping her and for threatening her. If it were her will, she would have locked him to death. After which she fell down herself. A car was already rushing toward them. It was Sasha's father who brought the money. He said that he would give it all as long as it did not harm his daughter. The girl immediately told her daddy she was here, and he dropped the suitcase of money to check on her immediately. She scared the hell out of my father. After all, he had said many times that the guards were presented for her own safety, and they were not to be deceived. Now he had to explain himself to her mom. Sasha replied that she had people who could take care of her, namely her classmates. He saw the battered men, so the man informed David that the place needed some cleaning up. 15 minutes later. The man has no words to express his gratitude. If it weren't for those 2 guys, he doesn't even want to think about what might have happened. She asked Uncle Ro to stop. Sasha is her closest friend and she is always ready to come to her rescue. Besides, the Yuan helped them this time. He also thanked Xu Yuan from the bottom of his heart. Sasha is not comfortable with his constant tutelage. Therefore, he suggested that the guy should take over Sasha's defense within the school walls. Of course, he would pay for it. But the only ones he will protect are Sue and her mother. She immediately wanted to punch the asshole, but he ducked. The girls decided to leave this place. Xu Yuan thought about the fact that this time he had a real chance to protect Su Hang's daughter. This would now be the meaning of his life. The man turned to Xu, saying that the time was no longer childish, and his household was already worried about him. So he offered him a ride. He thanked, but still declined the offer, as he had a couple of unfinished business. So he left on his motorcycle. He was sure that this boy was not as simple as he might seem. If he started working for him, his business would go up. He left the motorcycle and wrote on it that it should be taken to the lost and found. After that, the guy went to the direction where Xu Yuan's house was located, but there was already a group of guys waiting for him there. The blonde man didn't expect Xu Yuan to pay for his kindness like this. He pointed out to Brother Hu that this was the man who needed to be taught a lesson. This kid must be new. That's why he decided to get acquainted. Brother Hu is the boss of this neighborhood. Or does he really need to be explained to in detail? Now he should get on his knees and lick old Hu's boots. And maybe he'll spare him. Or at least he'll still have his limbs. It seems they all came here on purpose to punish him. And since he's pretty traumatized right now, you might be able to fulfill your intention. But instead of attacking, they're just standing there. Are they really stupid? Brother Hu didn't understand what he was saying. The man replied that the kid was implying that he was stupid. He's the most educated in the whole neighborhood. Classrooms from bell to bell. He ordered his boys to attack him. But the protagonist has already gotten rid of one person with ease. He was carrying a gun. After that, he got rid of a couple more people. They bought trauma guns and didn't bother to learn how to shoot. Now they must experience firsthand what rash actions will lead to. They're kind of into the sick in the head, so he'll make sure they understand everything with this method. And then he fired a shot. Finally, he arrived at Xu Yuan's house. The guy said he was home. His aunt was already waiting for him. This woman's name is Chen Jizhang. She is 31 years old, 167 centimeters tall, and weighs 46 kilograms. She is a relative of Xu Yuan's mother. After the death of his parents, she was willing to take the boy in, single-handedly taking care of Xu Yuan. The boy often ignores her, but she is the closest person to him. To send and to love with all my heart. It's a complex combination of emotion. 4. It's hard to imagine that she would abuse a boy's trust. Ji Jong asked. He at least looks at his watch once in a while. Then Auntie noticed that he was hurt. Looks like he was being bullied again by some juvenile assholes from West Street. She decided to deal with it. But suddenly she noticed that she was pulling the boy as she always did, and he hadn't even moved. He thanked me for my concern, but he's really kind of frail. He needs to start training right away. Because of such strange words, she thought the guy was sick, or perhaps he hit his head hard. Xu Yuan replied that his head was intact, and so was his body, so medical attention was definitely not required. His aunt tightened her grip on him, and to her he didn't understand what she even wanted. Why this woman was lashing out at him. And was that really why the past owner of the body sent her away all the time? But he doesn't feel any animosity. She gave him a flick. The woman reasoned that it was her little punishment for his behavior. Next time, he should just warn her. They're not strangers after all. It's true that they may quarrel and make up, but they will always remain close people. His aunt will always come to his aid and will always stand behind him. He remembered his training in the army. Soldiers had to remember that their backs were always covered by a battle buddy. So he replied that he understood this battle comrade. She threw a medicine at him and asked him what kind of joke this was all about. And at this moment, Xu Yuan's injury was greatly aggravated. But the clock was 6 in the morning, and the aunt came in to wake the boy. The little asshole's out late again, but all she saw of his room was order. The bathtub was also clean to a shine. She didn't even realize when that rascal had managed to turn into a cleaner. I wonder if he really had a concussion, especially since he'd run out early in the morning. The old men only watched him practice, whereupon he got off and they laughed. The boy should accept that he's naturally frail. It wasn't the first time they'd fallen. They didn't understand why they had to torture themselves so much. He'd be better off enrolling in Tai Chi with the pensioners. Including the morning workout, 30 passed. If you add the midday and evening workouts, you end up with 2 hours. He said goodbye to the old man and said he would come tomorrow. After he returned, his aunt asked him where he had been. Xu Yuan replied that he had been at morning practice. It was 7 hours and 12 minutes on the clock. As it turned out, the boy was waiting for the order to start eating. The aunt replied that he could eat, after which he ate it all in 3 minutes. He got ready to go to school. The woman recognized that this boy was particularly in the weird today. Everyone was looking at the Draconess Su and waiting for someone. He'd better not turn around if he didn't want to get his ass kicked. A guy with blonde hair asked where their princess was. As it turned out, he was talking about Sasha and maybe she was on vacation. Xu Yuan was also on his way to school, but his path and blocked by Su Yi. He pressed him against the wall and asked what they were staring at. The first thing she asked him was how he knew the name of her family's secret techniques. The protagonist replied that he had been taught by Su Hang. She was surprised that he knew her father. Xu Yuan replied that he was his battle comrade, and during the general training sessions, he would be there, training him. She laughed and wondered who would believe such nonsense. There was no way he could be her father's battle buddy. Let him say now that they had been baptized together. He's definitely delusional. Su explained that her father is a trucking specialist. He could at most be a colleague from the trucking company. Besides, he hasn't even moved on to high school yet. But he's already her father's battle buddy. She even assumed she should address him more politely. The protagonist replied that actually he did. It's stupid, but deep down she wants to believe him. Maybe the kid has news from her father too. He seemed to want to reveal the truth about Su Hong, but the girl beat him to it by saying that class was about to start and she didn't have time for his nonsense. She thanked him for his help yesterday, and if he needed anything, let him tell her. Without further question, she would help in any way she could. But it was as if he'd crossed her. The guy even came into her eye. The girl replied that he had to go to a neighboring classroom. Xu Yuan replied that the enemy could appear at any moment. He should always be ready to defend her. Those words even made her feel embarrassed, talking about how he should wake up. I wonder if they're making a movie here. And what kind of phantom enemies is he talking about anyway? The teacher got angry about disrupting the class and threw chalk in their direction, asking what they were even doing in that class. But suddenly a fork flew near the teacher. Since he is a teacher, so Xu Yuan will just warn him for now. But if the attempt on Su's life happens again, he will finish him off. Fortunately, it's just a piece of chalk. That asshole was kicked out of class, talking about how he needed to go to his own class. Otherwise, she was gonna kill him herself. Su Hang was right. Terrorists are easier to deal with than teenagers. The teacher noticed that Xu Yuan was not interested in studying in this group, so she suggested going to the advanced class. This is, after all, the same class where Su and... He replied that the teacher was right and he wanted to head there. The teacher commented that he was setting ambitious goals. If he is sure he can do the program in all subjects, He can go. She called him to the board to test his knowledge. Now the teacher was also confident that he was safe to go to advanced eyes. Others were discussing his math grades. Let him try to solve this problem first, let alone at an advanced level. He wondered how long geometry for snipers had been in the high school program. The mass is 1 kilos, and they use a model rocket as a basis. 50 Gran goes to the combustion reaction. 600 miras the velocity of the air that leaves the nozzle. The kinetic energy of the rocket is 30 kilos multiplied by EMS. The teacher replied that this was also correct. He wondered if the estimated time of dropping the jet bomb was included in the program. In other subjects, he also answered everything correctly. Others crowded in to inquire about his preparatory courses. That chemist can't teach her much. It turns out that a high school student and a military man have a lot in common, because the program is almost the same. He was wrong to underestimate high school students. Suddenly he heard the cry of Sue and he immediately jumped from the window and climbed down the tree. What they didn't understand at all was how he could jump from the 3rd floor. Sue didn't agree to it. They know she's ticklish to death. But she should try it, because it's really cool. She was very ticklish. Suddenly, the main character appeared and pushed those 2 girls away from her. Sue and embarrassed as usual. She didn't understand at all what this guy was doing. He told her to freeze, after which he tossed the white thing into the sky. The protagonist decided to cover her with his body. The president he tossed fell and crashed. The others watched this with bewilderment. He thought it was some kind of bomb and it didn't even go off. Could it be defective? At the time, the girl demanded an immediate explanation from him. The girl explained that it was her neck massage machine, and quite expensive. The teacher stated that he broke a valuable thing on purpose to his classmate. Then he jumped from the 3rd floor and attacked the girl. What does he think he's going to do next? He will do anything she commands. He can do anything and there are no insurmountable obstacles for him. Sue asked the teacher to ignore it. He's been watching action movies, and this is his condition now. First, he should write an essay on why he should not behave like that at school. He also has to apologize to his classmate. And of course, he will have to reimburse the cost of the broken apparatus. Xu Yuan replied that he didn't have any money, but he could help her prepare her secret theft. She was really tensed by the words about secret stealing. Sue replied that he meant a secret meeting to organize a surprise date. She had just taught everyone that the most important thing in this case is to take your time to act secretly. But the protagonist replied that he meant he would prepare a secret theft. Just to pull off a heist in the city limits is a very difficult thing to do. Her gaze was so telling him to just shut up. He didn't understand why she'd told him about the date, but one word from her and he was ready to get started. The bell has rung, so they will go. And she'll lend him the money herself. She mentioned the theft again. She asked not to be told that he would now walk her home every day. Last time, there was only one thing he knew about Su Yi and her mother. That was that they had died, and he couldn't even locate their cases. The investigation led him to the customer, and he should have known exactly where their bodies had disappeared to. But when they disappeared and when they were killed, he never found out. Out came the mom who heard her precious daughter's voice. She told her mom 1,000 times that if you opened the door like that, it was bound to break. Next time her mom will be the most attentive, so her daughter should hug her as soon as possible. She hasn't seen her all day and misses her like crazy. He guessed that it was the wife of Su Hang, that is, Zhuang Feng. She noticed the boy. Her daughter has grown up so fast. She even goes home with a boy. She decided to take this little buddy with her since they have a lot to talk about. Sue asked her mom to stop all this. She just hadn't had her coffee yet. Daughter all knows that without a cup of coffee there is no inspiration. So she has to help her mom and run to get 2 cups. After that, she said that she loves her daughter, and closed the door. Su Hang likes to say that he has never met anyone with intuition like his wife. So even though she doesn't know why, this boy has the same look as her husband. So she guessed he was a possible one of his company. Sue, and wondered what he had talked to her mom about yesterday. Did she really approve of the whole seeing her off thing? She hoped he would at least get away from her this weekend. He told the woman that the other day a boy named Xu Yuan entered his mind, and he is here to protect Zhuang Feng and her daughter and prevent them from being killed by terrorists. She believed him. He hadn't expected her to react that way at all. It really does sound like bullshit, doesn't it? This story, of course, resembles a vulgar tabloid novel about the military. But her husband is a member of a counter-terrorist group, and certainly wouldn't let an ordinary schoolboy know so much. So she just decided to confide in him. Her own safety is of little concern, but here's the Sue and could use some extra protection. She decided to slip away from him. The protagonist ran after her. If he's going to defend her, let him try to catch up first. She ran across the street. The car was no obstacle for her either. The girl jumped right in front of the truck, but she snagged the help of her backpack on the sign. She got on the car and said goodbye to the guard. Suyi was curious to see how he would get out of this situation. Someone who could catch up with her had not been born yet. She came to the Ling AI. The woman in the wheelchair saw that she was in a great mood. She was immediately curious about what had happened. Su replied that she'd gotten away from a nasty guy. There, her mood improved. Would anyone dare to offend their Suyi? She's dying of curiosity now, so Suyi just has to introduce them. But she didn't think she would. I mean, this guy doesn't deserve that honor. She came out changed into her uniform and greeted the new guest. But she clearly didn't expect it to be Su Yuan. Ling AI approached the young man and told him that he needed rest and a sip of water. The boy replied that he was on a mission and was not allowed to take food from the hands of strangers. She asked him how he'd managed to find this place. And she's been on a roundabout way. Only her mom knows that she works here part-time. The protagonist replied that it was the easiest task to track down a target. First, he analyzed her behavior pattern. Then he chose an appropriate surveillance format. Then he canvassed the neighborhood, reconstructed her day, and he finally figured out where she'd gone. She was more interested in finding out where he'd gotten her picture from. Xu Yuan replied that this picture was given by her mom. The girl didn't understand why the hell her mom started giving out pictures to some leftist guys. That was still not enough for a happy life. She was beginning to guess that SUA was talking about this particular guy. She explained to Xu Yuan that it was Saturday and there would be a lot of people. They usually couldn't cope, for they were short-handed. So she offered to help them if he had nothing else to do. If Su and Will be on his radar, he is ready to get to work. Help is always a good thing, but she didn't understand what kind of emergency Ling AI was talking about. She decided to keep quiet about it. The girl sensed the perfect opportunity. She laughed at how he was now also working in this outfit. This outfit fit him very chicly. He doesn't really care what they dressed him up in, except the size is a little small. He also welcomed new customers. True, they decided to just walk out of here. She'd thought of that reaction as well. But if they'd made the mess, they'd have to deal with it. She decided to get him away from the customers. His job today is to stand and make drinks. He has to watch carefully because she's not going to repeat herself 100 times. The guy explained that she shouldn't be in such a crowded place because it was very dangerous. The best thing is to stay at home for the time being. First of all, she doesn't believe his kidnapping bullshit for a second. Plus, sitting in four walls waiting to die is out of character for her. She'd rather find her place in the world to take care of herself and her mom on her own. Especially since she promised her father she would. He remembered Su Heng showing a picture of his daughter. Only 3 years old, and she already knew how to make coffee for her elders. He wished he could retire sooner so he could be around his girls all the time. Zhu Yuan explained that Su Heng was proud of her. He doesn't have to talk to her like an adult. Let him tell her if he understands how to make drinks. He should show it to her so she can check it out. She thought it was strange, because he seemed so trustworthy. Or maybe it was just her imagination. She'd gone to bed too late last night, but she noticed his perfect drinking technique. And this cup was so much better than hers. She couldn't believe her eyes. So she asked if he had ever made milkshakes before. Xu Yuan replied that he had never done it, but it was quite simple. Ling AI said to bring a cocktail to table 3. She brought a cocktail to a visitor and wished him a pleasant evening, but when he tasted it, he spit it all out on her. The man apologized for this and explained that it was impossible to drink it. The girl replied that it was not his fault and she would bring him another cocktail. As it turned out, he added too much dry cream. Sasha fell down as usual. This time they were at the skating rink. Su doesn't understand her either. She's sitting around and trying to set sports records. She thought that if she could manage the bicycle, she could move on slowly. They say that if he's in the neighborhood, nothing bad can happen. But then why was she caught by the Su and Su? It's so disgusting when some thug looks at decent girls. Suddenly, they began to fall together. Xu Yuan immediately ran towards them to help, but and caught Sasha. In the future, she should just trust her. After which, he looked at the protagonist with a smirk. He didn't realize what it was at all. When she noticed Sasha's condition, she decided to take a little break. She quickly rushes to the lockers because she has a bar of chocolate there, just for such an occasion. Sasha replied that she was fine and ready to continue practicing. But Susu also replied that the girl should just wait here for her. She can learn to skate on vacation, then you'll be surprised when she comes back. But the girl fell again. And it went on like this several times. She didn't understand why she just couldn't get the same one to stand on her skates. Xu Yuan replied that she had a balance problem. Her center of gravity was unstable and her limbs were spreading apart. She agreed that it's all about the arms and legs. She's just clumsy. No matter what she tried to do, the outcome was the same. But the more she tried, the sillier she felt. She's sick of everyone just trying to take care of her. He addressed her as a new recruit and told her to remember that excuses are the lot of the weak and whiny. The girl asked what if that was almost always the truth. In response, the guy asked if there was at least something she was good at. Sasha replied that there was. So he wondered if she had done it right the first time. That seemed to cheer her up a bit. A man arrived and addressed the lady, saying that there was trouble. She told him to calm down and explain normally what happened. It was all about the contract with the American firm Angzi. Their general director has all of a sudden taken over the finances himself and personally led the delegation. He is strongly opposed to several clauses in the contract. They were given only 3 days to find a solution. She told them 2 days to entertain them to the fullest and to make sure everything was top-notch. Negotiations, they must postpone until the very last minute, and they must also stand their ground. Willing to bargain slightly on the first 2 items, but the other 3 remain the same. They started this game themselves, and now it's time to explain that they alone are far more important to this treaty. Using delaying tactics, they will force them to back down. The first 2 points were just a diversion. They only care about defending the main 3. The man replied that he understood and would go to comply. Others started saying that this is who's in charge. It's all about grip, and she's got it in abundance. She's a little girl, but she's got character. She's got a lot of sass. She settled it quickly in just 2 minutes. But it's not like that at all. She wasn't born with this gift. She had to study hard to get to that level. So the girl wanted to try again. Well, she fell again. Soo-in also tried to help her in any way she could, and it worked out for her in the end. She was very happy that she was able to make it work, even though the guy said he didn't need thanks, but she still wants to say a big thank you to him. It seems that if Shu Yuan were to appear next to her, she would immediately start doing well. She decided to stop her. It was Sue who taught her how to skate. I got this kid following her again. He's on her like a bath sheet. I'm getting used to it, and he's always looming around. Suddenly they heard a scream. The man was surprised to see the one who had been brought here. So he asked what these people were doing here. The blonde man sat battered. He ordered the man with blue hair to hit him again. But someone's foot prevented him from doing so. It was so, and she wondered if they thought they were tough, it was okay to bully the weak. But suddenly she remembered that they were high school students from the 9th quarter. She was approached by Shu Yuan, who wanted to help already. The girl replied that she herself had made this mess, so she herself should deal with it. The man ordered that she needed to be shown how to behave. They immediately pounced on her. She used the fury of a bull to kick the man. After that, she used a stone fist on the other man. Another blow she thankfully managed to dodge. That attack had cut her hair a little short. She saw that it was a knife. Sue didn't know what she should do now. She had never had an armed opponent before. Zhu Wen shouted to remain calm. She must watch her breathing, assess the situation, and determine the enemy's weakness. She must then strike. Su Hang's silhouette appeared behind him. Shu Yuan said that she could do anything. To begin, she decided to look around carefully, after which she struck him. This time she was attacked with a different weapon. She successfully evaded it, after which she struck the man with red hair. She was pleased with the work she had done. Su and thought that it was cool. Shu Yuan replied that it really wasn't bad. But suddenly the man was up again, indicating that he wasn't done yet. Not with the girl, not with this guy. Shu Yuan grabbed his arm and elbowed him, after which he knocked the man out. Meanwhile, the blonde boy was watching Shu Yuan and didn't understand how this was even possible. After all, he was the weakest in the school. After this, they will no longer rub up against their school. And they won't bother their classmates. They won't get off so easy next time. The blonde man wondered, and when he'd managed to get up that strong. Perhaps he had secretly signed up for karate. But that didn't matter now. What mattered was that he had signed up and helped him. Therefore, he was even thinking of asking Shu Yuan to become a protector. He turned to the boy, calling him friend. He hoped that someone like him would not take offense at him. He also asked him not to be angry about what had happened before. This brother was too cool, so he asked to come under his wing. Blondie said he wouldn't be in debt. Just have him throw it to me, but didn't understand at all what the guy was talking about. He asked if they really thought that if they beat up those jerks, they would all be happy. But he hastened to shatter their dreams, because it would never happen. They were the elders from the 9th district. Their leaders would surely come after them to finish what they had started. And then the world would be out of the way. Zhu Yuan asked where he got that from. Su-in replied that he had clearly been beaten over the head, not a word. But the guy said not to look at him like that, because he has his sources. He knows everything about everybody. As the mercenaries say, nothing is more important than information, especially in light of recent events. The more information he has, the better. Even though he didn't fully understand who this little brother was, but he'll teach him the moves. That way, he wouldn't be able to get into trouble anymore. Xu Yuan wondered if this would do in exchange for his introduction or not. His parents made one huge mistake. They raised him to be overly cautious. He had been afraid all his life that one day they would leave him alone. It had a great effect on his character. He grew up to be a coward and a weakling. In time, he began to please his abusers. His subservience was to their liking. They even started taking him with them. But the truth is, he didn't want to hurt anyone. He didn't want to be like those people. But it's not that easy, because these people are very strong. He can't look this guy in the eyes, because he sees in them what a lowlife he was. He apologized for what he had done. He promised that the protagonist would not be disappointed in him. Zhu Yuan quickly replied that he believed him. Su-en noticed that this couple was kind of weird. He told the boss that they got beat up by some damn school kids here. They don't respect the boss at all. He's so itchy for revenge. The boss said he would come and sort it all out himself. The main character was busy practicing as usual. The old men were discussing the fact that this guy is doing great. He trains every day, and it would be strange if the result did not appear. He's finally finished. But suddenly he felt that someone wanted to hit him and immediately dodged his foot. The girl with red hair replied that it was pretty good. He's always on the lookout. As it turns out, she's one of the ringleaders of the 9th Ward, and her name is Li Ying. Now he's got it all figured out. She came to explain to him that the 9th block was best not to be messed with. She wanted to hit him with her fist, but the protagonist dodged again. She grabbed him with a wash and kicked him. No teenager had ever been able to handle her before. She congratulated him for being the first to do it. Her movements are precise and fierce. Her technique is superb, and her strength and speed are superb. He was beginning to remember this fighting school. Let her show him what she could do. He wanted to figure out her technique. Su Yi as well as Sasha are joining them. Su-en replied that today's ex-Xu Yuan is late. The kid replied to be given 5 minutes. Sasha wondered if he was fighting now with some girl, and she would even try to break them up. Su replied that she wouldn't get involved without figuring it out. It's like he's fine. Especially since she has complete confidence in this guy. He's not usually the first one to get into a fight, though. Ying asked why he was hovering there, but he quickly felled her. But suddenly the wig fell off her. It happened again. All her childhood she was told she was a girl and shouldn't be doing kung fu. She shouldn't act like that. It's all boy stuff and it's not for girls. Girls should always be weaker than boys. They'll protect that sweet yin-yang from anything. Girls have always depended on men, no other way. She yelled for them to shut up. Someday she could prove it to them. The girl wanted to achieve everything on her own. Then they would realize that girls weren't just some defenseless gender. She replied that she was still a girl, which is why the protagonist was able to defeat her. He's stronger than her, but their speed and skill are on par. This kid was able to put her down, even despite her defense. So she wondered how he did it. Xu Yuan replied that she has very little combat experience. She doesn't know how to hold her own. The girl exposed her own weaknesses, and he didn't miss such a chance. If she begins to be, there should be only a fight in her heart and nothing more. This kid doesn't look like a dumbass bully, except her assistant said he is. Su explained that it was because the guys from the 9th district like to talk nonsense. They were the ones who started the fight. They had nothing to say, and Sasha had irrefutable proof. As soon as she snapped her fingers at you, a man with a laptop appeared. She showed the surveillance video. After that, she showed the very moment Su and ran to help the blonde man. Ying didn't understand how they dared to deceive her. She's glad they figured it all out. They also found out about their little big brother. Sasha replied that she didn't do it on purpose. She just doesn't like it when her friends are undeservedly hurt. She was quite pleased with her girlfriend and decided to hug her. The red-nosed girl replied that it was all her oversight. She apologized. After which Yin added that she would keep a better eye on her horde and they wouldn't bother them again. Su replied that everyone makes mistakes. It's all the more courageous to admit one's mistakes. With a temper like that, it's no wonder this girl has the whole neighborhood in fear. And to make up for the inconvenience, she asked permission to be their friend. The girl immediately wondered if this would bring more trouble behind it. She was almost late. The teacher told everyone to take their seats and also informed them that there was an announcement. He told me that there was a new girl in their class. Su-en jumped in with words about how they've just been bullying since this morning. Li Yingying announced to everyone that she had transferred from the 9th quarter. The girl didn't understand why so quickly. It hadn't been a day, and she had already transferred. She walked over to the seat that was across from the main character. Then she turned to the man sitting there. Yin Yin told him to get out of here. He obediently vacated the seat. Meanwhile, the girl was thinking that even if she were to be smashed to pieces, Xu Yuan would become her boyfriend. He clearly didn't expect the 9th quarter's Li Yingying to transfer to their class. And rumor has it she also wants to be her new girlfriend, Zhu Yuan. The kid replied that he met her this morning and they had a fight. But he won. It felt like he'd missed a lot of interesting things this morning. The kid may have defeated her now, but he had to remember that she wasn't the type to give up easily. The 9th block is the cloaca of the city. That's where all the local kids come from. It's a mess of local law and order. Lots of clans and factions ready to kill anyone who comes into their territory. Ling Yingying is the queen of all this chaos. She's the boss and the ringleader. She is not only the boss of the school, but also of the whole neighborhood. She will show stern and defiant, and no one will dare to even make a peep without her permission. She's a powerful giant. There is a sea of people beneath her, so there are all sorts of minions who take advantage of her name. There is real power behind her. Xu Yuan thanked for the timely intelligence. So, it translated to conquer Xu Yuan. Yin Yin confirmed her words. Su and asked why she was doing this. He defeated her, but that's no reason to go to the wedding with him now. He was the first to see her masculine character as a vulnerable girl's soul. She'd made a vow long ago that her boyfriend should be just like her, namely strong and attentive. Sasha explained that the guy treats everyone like that. It's his way of talking to everyone. She asked for an explanation as to why he's not getting any credit here. He's real strong and he can hold the school in his fist like 2 fingers to the pavement. She explained that first, there was no need to compare this school to the 9th quarter. There were and are no bosses here. He was picked on by a man who began to not understand why he had to sort the trash. Restrain the on-duty Xu Yuan, and that's his concern. He relayed the teacher's words that from now onwards he asked everyone to look after themselves, and then together they would make their common home a better place. Reports follow the conclusion, namely sorting the garbage, taking care of the purely individual, the care of the duty officer to exercise control. If he does not know how to do it, Xu Yuan can advise. The man immediately threatened to send him to some cistern. Suddenly someone took him by the hair. It was the yin to the yang. All they could hear was her screaming for her not to do it, and he was wrong. A man reported that he is ready to start sorting trash. Blue for recycling, red for toxic waste, green for food scraps, and yellow for everything else. They should all remember that taking care of the environment is their common cause. If Xu Wen becomes her boyfriend, she will help him establish his own order in this school, so that there won't even be such assholes from now on. He only wrote down in his notebook that 2nd grade student Li Yin had used force on a classmate. He let the action be taken. He's dynamiting her again. Is this about the Sioux? And she realized it when he started to shirk his duty, especially since he rubs up against her most of the time. She was always in favor of healthy competition. Sooner or later, the guy would be with her anyway. But Xu Yuan refused. He only needs to protect the object, and is completely uninterested in anything but that. He is completely indifferent to everything that is going on around him. Li Yin asked who he was protecting here. In her family, all the men, starting with her grandfather, became military men. She saw from an early age how her grandfather cared for his fellow servicemen, one and the same, like members of his family. He kept saying that you can't win a war alone. The most important thing in war is to have a strong rear. If he's there to protect someone, then today she will become Xu Wan's protector. The man didn't expect his sister to change schools again, and rumor has it, it was about some guy. They sure went crazy in there. The other tried to calm him down somehow, saying that he would try to dig up a dossier on him first. But that's not gonna work. He's gotta deal with this punk with his own hands. Sue and calling everyone to play the slots. They should have a blast. Finally, she'll be able to get some rest. I mean, he's told her many times. She should avoid crowded places, then video in the crowd lies danger. This suit makes him look like he's in a cocoon. That makes it a lot harder for him. She watched as a daddy gave a toy to his daughter. The protagonist inquired what she was staring at. The girl explained that one day her father came home for the weekend with a hare. He had made it with his own hands, and he said he would bring one of these gifts every year. Years ago, he hurt his finger. Su Heng's behavior is beyond his comprehension. I wonder if he's making a bomb disguised as a doll. He quoted his daughter's words about whether her daddy could make her a bunny. That's exactly what his daughter asked him. That's why he'd never disappoint her. Afterward, he showed off this handsome boy. Su and didn't understand how he could not come back. Didn't he want him back with his daughter and wife? But Shu Yuan replied that he would never do such a thing. It hadn't occurred to him before. Why some are willing to go to pieces for the sake of others and even before death to think about their loved ones. But as he protects the girl, he begins to understand how her father felt. She asked him what the hell he was talking about. And again, he was up to his old tricks. If there's no one to give her a gift, she'll go out and win it herself. At the vending machine, she pulled the bunny. But he fell. She explained that it's just a loose grip. She's not holding anything at all. The grip obeys her movements. If you stand up a little and shake the device, the grip will do everything by itself. He offered to do it all again, Su, and asked if he was completely blind. It's not working. He reached for the machine gun, after which he told the girl to trust him. Grabber hooked the bunny, but the bunny started to fall again. After which, the protagonist began to turn the machine. Thus, he got her a bunny. She demanded an explanation. He should know better than to do that. But today, she'll pretend she didn't see anything. Meanwhile, they were already being watched by someone. How dare that boy go behind his little sister's back and have affairs with someone else? Their family's not gonna let this go. After he walked her home, she said goodbye to him. They noticed that this kid was alone. Now this boy's gonna learn how to fool pretty girls. They followed him all the way. The man then noticed that they had already passed by this sign. They immediately ran after that boy and saw that he had fled. It felt like they were up against an old scout. But it was unclear how a young kid could pull this off. When they catch this kid, he'll be the one to ask about it. Does he really want to use force? And he really did. With his vision, he could survey the entire neighborhood. It was empty, and he wasn't here. Suddenly, he saw his back and applied something sharp. He hadn't even expected someone to get close to him so quickly. He scratched his neck. Not only was the kid able to evade the detection system, but he was also able to sneak behind their backs with stealth. He started shooting at them. Does the kid really think he can scare them with that gun? But he didn't realize where it came from, how much power there was in them. After which he put the gun to his throat. The man explained that they are the brothers of Li Yin Yin. He asked if they could confirm their identity. He showed his military ID card, which said he was a Li Ling, and the one held by the boy is Li Qi. He noticed his pupils were not dilated. After which, Shu Yuan asked perhaps that he too would be from the military. Li Qi replied that he was. He felt no change in his pulse, so the man wasn't lying. Their demeanor suggests they're warriors. At first he thought they were retired soldiers who'd retrained as assassins, but then he quickly realized that their main target wasn't Su and at all. So he decided to do him a favor. He had moved stealthily during the counterattack. Not even his scent could give him away. So he asked them why they had been able to detect him. Ling Ling has developed intuition and all 6 senses since childhood. Shu Yuan replied that it was a lie. If they don't want to talk, they don't have to. They should make it clear that there will be no more tailing him. They began to assume that this time they had missed something themselves. So the kid seized the moment. But you gotta hand it to him. The kid's got a lot going for him. They thought about finding a way to get him. In a couple of days, the school will be holding a Spartacide. The class teacher asked me to prepare a list of participants, so she asked who had any wishes. But everyone was silent. Li Yin Yin asked why she was making such a fuss. After all, this is a normal list for a sparring competition. Last year, they screwed up on all fronts. They had first place honors at the end in all sports. Their class was the laughingstock of the entire school. Only a fool would agree to that. So whoever came up with the idea, let them participate. There's no one to coach their group, so there's no Spartakiad to speak of. Su-an wondered what about Shu Yuan. He was even able to get her into sports. Maybe it's not too hard for him to organize training for the rest of us. She's right, but it still makes her question it. After which she looked at the guy. He's crazy. It would be bad for her plans. His behavior doesn't fit with that. Sasha asked if Shu Yuan agreed. Maybe she could give him a chance. Su-an was only willing to give him a chance if he agreed. He's gonna need help defending this Su and this offer comes in handy. He'll be able to use all the resources of the class. He pinned the kid against the wall, and afterward he told this boy to sign himself up for a short distance run. After the class, he has extra until the night, so he doesn't have even a minute to practice. Shu Yuan replied that he was willing to train him even after the course. He escorted this guy to the extra, after which he stayed there waiting for a long time. Sasha came in and explained that this enclosure has a back door. He's waiting for nothing, because that boy won't come. Shu Yuan saw that his pupils were not dilated, and his breathing was normal. He was definitely telling the plain truth. Sasha explained that he was using the excuse to excuse himself from it. What that guy said to the protagonist, and what he thought were actually neither the same thing. He didn't understand why he would do such a thing. The girl explained that no one likes open conflicts. After all, no one needs unnecessary headaches. Sooner or later, in the process of growing up, everyone learns it. When he got older, things were simpler. White was white, and black was black. She learned this science at home. It's a necessary aspect of a successful negotiation. No one usually reveals their true intentions. Hints and innuendo have long been her faithful companions. But the truth is that sometimes you really want a break from it all. But this guy is completely different. She doesn't have to look for a double bottom in Xu Yuan's words. Therefore, she really enjoys spending her free time with him. He didn't understand what to do now. After all, this could be very damaging to his mission. So she offered a solution for him. The guy again explained that he really had no opportunity to train. He had a knee injury and was incompatible with sports loads. Xu Yuan is almost certain that this kid is lying. Sasha explained that we can consider this trauma from kindergarten. He didn't understand how she was doing it. His mom insists that he should spend all his energies only on his studies and nothing else. Sasha explained that he actually said that he just doesn't care about anything but his studies. He called her a rose and asked if she was done. The girl only made small corrections and came closer to the truth. He's seen their competition from the grave. These people were getting on his nerves. Xu Yuan wondered why he thought that. Because he's afraid of losing. They are the most advanced class and should be first in everything. And now they've been smashed to smithereens. If it's the same this year, the whole school will start making fun of them with renewed vigor. They'll be pointing fingers at their classmates for signing up. He's been watching this kid. In the morning, he runs to school to be on time. From his house to school is exactly 100 meters, and he runs that distance in 12.78 seconds. He's got great data, a couple of training sessions, and he's got his first abs in his pocket. That's why he chose this boy. He couldn't believe he could be a winner. He would be looked upon with admiration. The main character really pissed him off with all this, so he's gonna try it after all. But there are conditions. He won't go to the competition until the training is paid off. Xu Yuan asked why he did so, blushed, and ran away. This was all already really beyond his comprehension. The world of high school is full of mysteries. It's a pity that there is no way to sign up all classmates for the competition, but there were still willing participants. Only a couple of people, but what a bunch. Sue asked how they had pulled it all off. Sasha explained that it was all credit to Xu Yuan. He had done the research and determined everyone's athletic aptitude. Afterward, the girl noticed that even Sasha had signed up. She didn't want to support Sue, and from the podium anymore, sometimes to participate herself. If there are no questions on the list, he needs to find a place to organize the training process. Sue, and asked why the site is bad. The guy promised that for his methodology, the site would be too small. Sasha decided to look into the matter. 2 days later, there are several thousand square meters in this sports complex, plus equipment and various inventory. She tried to take into account all his recommendations. In addition, she took the liberty of inviting the chef and nutritionist of the official national team. She vouches that they have never tasted anything more delicious in their lives. That massage therapists can help you recover after a super intense workout, so that your training does not affect your studies in any way. If transportation is a problem for anyone, she has booked a room in a 5-star hotel for everyone, and of course, a comfortable shuttle service to the school. Now, without further ado, she suggested that we start training. In such an environment, practicing is a joy, he thought, but then changed his mind. She asked for someone to save her. They didn't like that kind of exercise at all. It's bullying, not intense training. They're training for a regular school field day, not a triathlon. Sasha also noticed that these trainings are very intense. Sue asked if there was anything that could be done to help the common cause besides unlimited trust in the method. Xu Yuan is worth a look. The kid himself entered the competition and dragged everyone to the training. He really could organize this place with food and masseurs. But where the hell is he? The guy's seen his puny body. Let him try this exercise for himself. But he had his own training. They didn't understand what was going on here. Sasha explained that Xu Yuan had given precise instructions on what to do and how to do it, but she didn't know why. The ball hit him in the head. He had the same training in a previous life. As the ball flew in his direction, he cut it with his knife. He couldn't imagine a man being able to come up with such bizarre workouts. Even for their group, it was too much. But why not have some fun? He probably won't come back alive, but it's worth it. Even though the physicality of this body has improved, it still lacks flexibility. The conclusion is that he needs to train more to become more robust. Li Yin asked why they stood up. They're better now, but they still suck. I will not be mocked by anyone if they give their best. Xu Yuan had become like this through training. Therefore, the man didn't understand why he was worse. If this weakling could do it, it was God's will for him to do it. They went further into training. Judging by the intensity of the training, it is obvious that they will remember this Spartakiade for a long time. And all thanks to Xu Yuan. Everyone was exhausted, so they slept. He finally finished his workout. 5 days of practice is paying off. Fewer and fewer balls are hitting the target. Reaction and speed are increasing, but physical strength is not even 10 times less than before. He lacks strength. By all means, he must become stronger. That kind of workout must have worked up quite an appetite. And during snack time, she'll just treat his wounds. But he should have time to get in shape. And as for the wounds, such trifles don't deserve her attention. School tomorrow, so she needed to rest. Since he doesn't need rest, she's no worse. She'll be practicing too. She wanted to try that thing out this morning. Xu Yuan replied that she might get injured. But what kind of training is it anyway without injury? She watched him work hard to improve himself. His example inspired her to take up athletic endeavors. But still, it was very fast. He noticed that her movement and plasticity were on point. It was like she was made for this. But one ball and it hit her. It was painful. That guy was all blue, and she didn't know how he could stand to be in so much pain. She accidentally stepped on the ball and started to fall. At the same time, a ball was flying at her. Xu Yuan caught her. She wanted to say something to him, but he told her to be quiet. He can't hold out much longer and needs to get out of here now. It was like some kind of raise to him. But still, they were able to get out of there. Sue didn't understand why she had to kill herself like this if it was just a normal training session. But this isn't just an ordinary training session. He needs to plow even harder, because at the moment he is failing in his mission. Is he really torturing himself like this for her and Mom's salvation? He'd always been the usual spineless nerd. And at first, she hadn't believed a word he said. Every day she gets to know him better and better. He's not the same indecisive wuss anymore. In fact, he's the best at what he does. Thanks to the guy, she doesn't have a scratch on her. She thanked him for that. It's late and she should go. The kid could use a rest too. She wondered what if everything he was saying was pure truth. She no longer knew if her father was really just a simple trucking specialist. They all saw last year's footage from the event, and the way they all lost. The guy asked why he was showing them last year's video, and if he really wanted to remind them of that shame. For him, this video is like a slap in the face and a mockery. After him, the desire to participate disappeared. He didn't want to make fun of them at all. But from this video, you can analyze the strengths and weaknesses of their and other classes, and also to determine the battle strategy. And he believes you can't mock the brave fighters. He inquired about the guy and suggests they do the same. He told and showed them everything they needed to know. Next up is a long-distance run of 3 kilometers. Last year, it was the only competition where they weren't first from the end. Plus, Xu Yuan was in that race. He was still in a different class then. He looked at the tape. That's when he was pushed. But he got up anyway and kept running. His last memory as a Cheng is that his body and consciousness separated. But his consciousness is still alive in Xu Yuan's youthful body. If the consciousness of this body is still alive, then it is unclear where he went. Sasha wondered if a person could change that much. Sue replied that it was possible. Li Yingying also did not believe that it was Xu Yuan. Sasha asked, but what could change a person so much? His facial expression has changed a lot since then. Luck is clearly not on her side today. That type is very fast. The same girl from the alley appeared in front of them. She walked past the Lin. He felt something right away. The man inquired, wondering if he had noticed something. He must be overly vindictive. I wonder if he imagined it. The instructions are carried out, and she's in Ling Yuan. And at the same time, she'll get rid of that pesky tail. The girl inquired as to further instructions. The person reported that the photo was on her phone. Therefore, the girl should bring the target to them. She didn't understand why she was the only one who got such assignments. Boss said to take the target alive. She can't get hurt. The target is a real cutie this time. She wanted to have an unforgettable meeting. In the photo was So and also Sasha. They missed a repeat offender again. This agent manages to evade surveillance every time he enters the country. He's getting too comfortable here. The most important thing now is to find out sooner rather than later who the agent has become and where he is hiding. Also, what purpose does it serve? The first class of the sophomore year of high school won't lose to them again. Everyone was supporting their classmate. The rest of us were trying our best too. These guys were stung by a bee today. There wasn't even one able-bodied athlete in the first grade. They thought those kids could only read books. First grade is really scary. In the girls' 1.5 kilometer race, first place went to the second-year class. He noticed the Sioux and so far so good. Then there will be Huan Feng. Suddenly, he noticed his mom Su and supporting her golden boy. Behind her, someone wanted to touch her. But he was felled by Shu Yuan, asking what he had in mind. The woman said to let him go because it's not some criminal. It's the father of a man Nana from their class. She apologized with him, saying that he didn't do it on purpose. A man should forgive this child. The man replied that it was okay. It's weird. I mean, he was sure something was going to happen today. The whole result was due to Shu Yuan's training. Most of the classmates took good places. If they continue like this, they might become the first among the second year. Lin Yingying asked, could the person she liked be a loser? A woman appeared in front of them, saying that she was looking for one person here. So she asked for their help. Su and volunteered to help and asked for a picture. Perhaps she would recognize the man, but she didn't expect to see herself in that picture at all. And Sasha. Li Yingying immediately suspected something wrong. The girl replied that it was her. Looks like her luck has run out. Yin Yin stopped her fist, saying, Su and run. She immediately decided to strike back. She didn't understand how a middle school girl could have such strength. She's too fast. Li Yin Yin inquired as to what she wanted. The blonde replied that it was a secret. She could watch it closely while she lay on the floor. Suddenly she noticed she couldn't get up. The girl immediately inquired what she had done to her. She replied that it was also a secret. Li Yin Yin said Su and rather run away. If her target is the girl herself, then if Su Yi runs away, then she will fall behind Yin Yin. It was as if a spider had appeared behind her. The blonde touched her, asking what made her think she could even escape. Su couldn't shift due to fear. She thought that she was already strong enough to take any risks, but now she's completely helpless. The blonde wouldn't hurt her if she obeyed. Su mentally asked for someone to save her, and the last hope she had was to Shu Yuan. As if at her beck and call, he immediately appeared behind the girls and was ready to attack the perpetrator. Before the blonde could do anything, she was immediately punched in the face. The protagonist was ready to defend her. The blonde noticed that she somehow didn't feel this boy approaching. What was wrong with the students in this school in general? Shu Yuan inquired from Li Yin how she was. The girl replied that she was fine, only that she couldn't move yet. He has to be careful with this blonde because she's kind of weird. He then asked Su if she could move. The girl replied that she could. He needs the girl to fight alongside him, but she's too weak and very frightened. Shu Yuan said to wait for his signal. Su asked to listen to her. Obviously she's come for Su, and she's probably from that organization. Finally, he can stop waiting for the enemy to attack and start acting. We can't miss this chance. He started shooting. She wriggled out of those bullets with ease, after which she decided to attack him. The enemy is very fast, and so continuing to use a gun is a bad idea. He wanted to stab her, but she dodged. Instead, she took the boy's hand. He recognized those gloves and the position of the hand. Fortunately, he was able to dodge that hand. Su wondered if he wasn't afraid at all. Shu Yuan threw himself into the fight, believing that it would inspire her as well. That's why she can't give him a ride. He grabbed her hand and shouted the name Su, and she then threw a kick with her foot, but the blonde blocked that kick. She immediately reached out to grab Su, but the protagonist didn't let that happen. They decided to launch a counterattack. The main character wouldn't even let her relax. He slit her gloves and some crystals fell out of them. Had her gloves been this boy's target from the start? If he's right, these gloves coated with a neurotoxin that can paralyze a person if her hand is in a certain position. As far as he knows, there is only one person who uses this technique, specifically a spider. He fought a spider once when he was still a Gu Cheng. Well, he looked different then, and the big question was why. It doesn't matter how he found out, but anyone who knows the identity of the spider will be killed. Su immediately swooped down to hit her, but the spider only jumped upwards. Spider immediately struck back, talking about not thanking her for it. Shu Yuan caught her. She'll deal with this boy first. As soon as the spider attacked him, he immediately pushed Su away. She slammed his head down, whereupon the spider stepped on him with her heel. The girls were immediately worried about the kid. Yin Win realized that she needed to get up. Spider immediately attacked Su, and she should be a good idea of a girl and go with it. But he set himself up for this blow. The spider immediately grabbed his neck, speaking of what had already been said that he would die today. Su yelled, he wouldn't do it. She agreed to go with her, just so the blonde wouldn't kill the guy. She apologized to the little girl, though she wants to promise her that, but he knows her identity. Suddenly someone kicked her. It was the yin to the yang. She regained sensitivity through pain. Gingin made him a promise. He must protect the Su, and Ali Yin Yin will protect him. Spider immediately turned her full attention to her. Yin Yin grabbed her arm, indicating that she was attacking again with the old technique. She doesn't seem to put her in anything at all. Su immediately asked the protagonist if he was okay. He replied that they should capture the spider together. We should give Li Yin Yin a chance to attack. Their levels are different, but the spider fended off almost all of her attacks. Shu Yuan as well as Su, and immediately decided to move to help. Those two had her pinned down. Shu Yuan shouted for her to punch straight up her chest and under her ribs. Li Yin Yin did as he said. 3 kids were able to overpower her. What a shame. This time she would have to run, but they didn't want to let her go. Only the yin-yang began to fall. Looks like her body hasn't recovered yet. The guy yelled for Su to stay here and keep an eye on Yin Yin. As they ran up the stairs, running through the floors, they ran out onto the roof. Not only did those kids fail the assignment, but they humiliated her. We need to capture the spider before it can escape and interrogate it. But the spider himself didn't think so. He latched on with a hook, talking about how they would see each other again. After which he jumped off. So he escaped. The mission failed, which means there's someone else. The brothers immediately ran to their baby sister. Ying Ying replied that it's okay. After all, they are her brothers. She is afraid that she is the woman who attacked them for a reason. Li Qi immediately grabbed the guy by the collar, talking about how he let his little sister get hurt like that. Li Ling separated them, talking about how they came as soon as they could. Also, they don't know all the situations. He noticed that the guy's breathing was disturbed and his shoulders were moving unnaturally. He must have been seriously hurt. And that schoolgirl seemed pretty freaked out too. So they'll take them to the hospital, and at the same time, have them talk about what happened here recently. But the protagonist has yet to say no. They heard an announcement that the boys' 3-kilometer race was about to begin. They asked the second-year participants to gather at the tired registration within 5 minutes. Shu Yuan was signed up for this race. He must participate in it. The girl asked if he was crazy. He's in such a bad state, and he's so eager to participate in the race. It was his idea to participate in these competitions, and everyone has done well. So he just can't defect. These guys he told to go and he would find them after the race. He told his brother to take the girls to the hospital and he would stay here. Ying Ying said that she would stay here to follow Shu Yuan's race, and Su expressed the same wish, so they will go together. Ying Ying asked the brothers if they were okay with it. They were willing to do anything that only a sissy would wish. The others were immediately worried about why they had been gone for so long. Could it be that something had happened? They also noticed that the 2 types in the back didn't look very friendly. The men explained that they were Li Yin Yin's older brothers, and had come to watch little sister compete. He also explained that Sis had fallen and skinned her arm. It was nothing serious. He thanked him for his concern. In order to avoid confusion, he hopes that Su will also cooperate in the future. She understands perfectly. The participants were on the start line. The race is on. He was in terrible condition, so he started losing. The others didn't understand what was wrong with Shu Yuan. After all, he was fine just now. What had even happened? The girls cheered the kid on. Come on, he's not gonna make it. There's a chance if you run the last lane, but you won't have the strength for the remaining laps. My vision becomes blurry and my strength is almost at an end. Suddenly, he heard voices saying that he could do it. All of them began to cheer up Shu Yuan. His strength was running low, but he decided to outrun the competitors. They wouldn't stop shouting that the guy could do it. Their shouts helped, and he won. The guys screamed about how very cool he was. Meanwhile, the guy was breathing heavily and he fainted. Everyone immediately ran up to him, impatient. He woke up immediately on alert. The guy asked who was here. It was Sasha. He inquired where Su Yi was now. Sasha replied that she was with Lin Yin Yin and her brothers. These 2 are military, so and safe for now. The guy wondered why she was here and if something had happened again. The girl replied that she wanted to talk to him alone. He was guarded by the Yin Yin brothers during the day and Sasha never had a chance to see him. Except her family sponsors this hospital, so she found a way. Perhaps what she was about to say would seem strange, but it's the most appropriate explanation she's found. After he lost his senses in the competition, she tried to question whether Yin Yin and Su Yi, but they weren't particularly eager to share the details of the situation either. So she secretly asked the doctor to examine him thoroughly. It turned out that his shoulder dislocation and abrasions were the result of a fight. She knows how strong these 3 are, and the fight they got hurt in was obviously more than just a high school scuffle. But even Su doesn't say anything about it. She decided that the suddenly appearing brothers' military Yin Yin told the girl to keep quiet, because people knowing about this incident might be in danger. Then she thought of this. He's changed a lot lately. He's always guarding the Su and he's been practicing hard. This time, he was the one who was hit the hardest. Su was the one who was hurt the least. Obviously, he had sacrificed himself to keep the girl out of danger. Therefore, Sasha decided that this time they were really facing an enemy coming for Su but something struck her as odd. Even the military can only deal with the aftermath. So why did he seem to know in advance that this could happen and prepare for it? The conclusion she could come to was unimaginable even to her. It's not like he's Shu Yuan. The guy replied that that was it, right? He explained that the consciousness had gotten into another person's body from the body of a SWAT team member. She couldn't even think of such a thing. The answer was 100 times more extraordinary than she had guessed. But if that's the case, why didn't he contact his other self from this time? He said he was a member of an international mercenary organization. Isn't it less easy for their organization to protect a Su, and when he was Gu Cheng, it was impossible to contact him. Phones are very easy to tap. He was also thinking about finding himself. But if a type appeared in front of him who gave out all the information about him without a hitch, he would kill him on the spot. Sasha replied that it looked like he would. Sasha inquired if he was going to tell Su, and the protagonist replied that he was. Sasha knows he doesn't like to cheat or lie, but the fewer people who know his secret, the better. Otherwise, it will not only cause him unnecessary trouble, but will jeopardize the lives of those people. They use camouflage when they go into the forest, don't they? And right now, Shu Yuan's identity is his best camouflage. In the morning, the kid replied that he was fine and would be discharged soon. Su told him he better get a good night's rest. She helped him get an excuse to go to school. Li Ling asked his little sister if it would be better to go ask the doctor when the guy could leave for the hospital. She only remained silent and glared menacingly at them. They are her older brothers after all, so why would her gaze make them uncomfortable? She took the girl to find the doctor. As soon as the girls left, they immediately began questioning him about his connection to the case. The guy explained that as a friend and classmate, he only wanted to help resolve the situation. He better lay out what he knows fast. They will grab and bring back that type. Li Lin was telling his brother to chill out. It was clear that this kid was definitely hiding something, so he offered to make a deal. A few days earlier, third reported all clear. The fourth reported that he was also clear. Fifth had no change. They rushed in, yelling for no one to move, but there were some broken capsules with some unusual liquid in them. But there were also whole capsules, and there were naked people in those pods, and something like humans. The creature spoke of how things would change. Their plans would lead them to a new era. It was a horrible sight that even made one vomit. Now, he offered to make a deal. There are too many mysteries hidden in this kid, and it arouses curiosity. Besides, they are very interested in him, and they hope that the guy will join them in the future. So, this time he would like to exchange information with him. Shu Yuan inquired as to what he wanted to know. He had heard from his little sister that the man who had attacked them that day had come for Su, and the Yuan seemed to recognize the enemy, calling her a spider. It's true. It's just like Sasha said, yesterday. While he was unconscious, these two military men should have learned about the situation from Su Yi as well as Li Yin Yin. If he tells the truth, at worst, he and Su Yi will be taken into protective custody. But then they'll lose their autonomy. If that's the case, she'll tell him what to say. The guy replied that he had two conditions. First of all, he shouldn't ask where the guy got his information from. Secondly, they should not take any action against him and Su, and no action. If he agrees to these terms, he will tell him everything he knows. And this clam wasn't like that before. Obviously, there is someone who gave him the idea. He agreed. He's supposed to look for motorcycle prisoner number MT-0432. That's the Spider. An organization called Osiris. He looked at the sheet the protagonist handed him. Is this Spider really connected to Osiris? The Moto prison is the most heavily guarded prison for violent criminals. But he even knows the inmate's number. Shu Yuan asked if they were familiar with the organization and how they knew about the Spider. Li Lin explained that they had previously encountered a case of illegal human experimentation, and that case involved Osiris. Almost at the same time, a man appeared who saw the Spider commit a crime. According to a witness, after the Spider killed the victim, it completely took over the victim's appearance, so that was why it was completely different from what he remembered. But the boy didn't understand how that was possible. He recalled that the kid had asked earlier about how on earth did the Lilin know he'd be in the back, because that's his special ability. The Spider has one too. Information found. I can't believe we found something. Information on all 17 years of his life, including personal relationships. It was all in here. It's a normal life. They live on one paycheck and there's nothing suspicious. But that's just not possible. That bastard's not that simple. He's definitely missing something. The Spider makes you waste your time on some insignificant garbage. Had it already been erased from her mind that the assignment was a failure? She's only still breathing because of her ability, and because she at least has a sample of the target's body. That's the only reason the head kept her alive. The spider must hold her tail down and wait with bated breath for further instructions from the organization. That kid's gonna be her bitch. Meanwhile, the girls were practicing. Yin Yin swung with a leg kick. Unfortunately, Sue couldn't block that punch. She's strong. There's a reason she became the leader of the 9th Ward with that kind of strength. She took a lot of damage from a simple kick, but it's not enough. She didn't want to be a burden anymore. Meanwhile, Li Yingying thought about what she said about protecting others, while she herself fell first. But there's no way she's going to accept it. Shu Yuan was watching them. His arm was broken. No news on Osiris and Spider to this day. As far as he knows, if the operation failed the first time, they'll be sure to prepare a flawless plan the second time. But in such a state, how will he be able to stand up to future enemies? He heard Sasha's voice saying that she could help him. She can provide him with the best equipment for training, as well as any gear in addition to weapons. The guy guessed that she also had conditions. The girl was glad that she had grown up. Her terms are very simple. She wanted to join. Bad people want to kidnap her best friend, so she can't just sit back. She's going to use all her resources to help the protagonist thwart them. He remained silent, and so the evening came. According to the astronomical forecast, there will be an extremely extensive meteor shower tonight in the Alpha of Ascendant. Residents of the city will be able to see it with the naked eye. The ant told the kid to hurry up and look at the meteor shower. They'll make a wish on a shooting star. He explained that a so-called shooting star is simply a meteorite traveling through interstellar space. As it approaches the Earth, it is captured by gravity. When it enters the Earth's atmosphere at high speed, electron transitions occur, causing a light trail. In addition, she doesn't believe that a wish made to a piece of rock can come true. She pulled his ear and also told him to cut the crap. A lot of people watched the meteor shower. Sue puzzled that she no longer wanted to retreat in the face of danger. Sasha wished that all of her friends could successfully handle this situation. Li Yingying wanted to become stronger to protect everyone. His aunt told him to make a wish. Maybe it would come true. Even though he didn't believe in such a thing, he wished that he could successfully complete everything. On this night, only a few knew how much the world was about to change. Day 7 after the meteor shower. 3rd Lingyuan Middle School, Weibai. The man smashed the bottle over his head. After that, he started beating the guy. He was covered in blood. After which the kid looked outside. Indeed, how could a wish that was made on a shooting star come true? It's not true. This will never end. But suddenly, something began to emerge from the man's shadow. This monster opened its mouth to kill a man. The boy opened his eyes and was horrified at what he had just seen. Half of his abuser's body was missing. He stared in horror at the body that had just fallen beside him. He didn't realize what had just happened at all. Suddenly, he noticed a man with white hair and blue eyes near him, who had finally found a new partner. He greeted him. Afterward, he called this kid an awakening, Sue, and asked the protagonist about his injury. By now, he can move his arm as he normally does. Suddenly, they saw danger in front of them, and the boy stood up for them. A group of men were robbing a car. Sue didn't like that they were robbing a collection car in broad daylight. Shu Yuan stopped her, saying that this was not a good time. Suddenly, they were surrounded. Do these people really hope to stop them with their rubber bullet guns? He snapped his fingers. He immediately sensed the danger and took cover for the girls. All the cops exploded. At the scene, except for the corpses of the police officers, there was no one else. It was the awakened one, wasn't it? The news was already playing on the forums that the robbers had the audacity to blow up the collectors in front of everyone. The disguised protagonist sneaked out of the house. He saw the bike outside the store. When the owner of the bike came out, he was shocked that he didn't see his vehicle. There was also a sign saying the kid had borrowed a bike that he would return tomorrow morning. Judging from the camera footage, the robbers knew the location of the cash collectors well. There are more than 100 banks in Linyuan, but they chose a fairly remote location for the robbery. They are familiar with the area and were able to escape quickly. Obviously, there is definitely at least one local among the 3 men. They managed to evade surveillance while avoiding crowded routes. And there's only one place that fits. They were enjoying the sight and the amount of all that money. How nice it is to just throw money around. Tomorrow, they'll register a shell company and launder all that money, and then they'll spend as much as they want. And if it's not enough, they'll just rob some more. Well, unfortunately, the protagonist found them. They immediately took notice of him. He knocked the 2 men's heads against each other. The man asked who the hell he was. He summoned the blast again. The force of the blast is limited. If you keep a distance of 5 steps, the maximum you can get hit by the blast wave, which is tolerable. It's just like the security cameras. The explosion was caused by a snap of the fingers. He wanted to see where he could hide now. In the case of one arm, the blast covers 180 degrees. In the case of two raised arms pointing in different directions, the area of the explosion will increase. The safest place he can hide is behind him, specifically the blind spot. He then attacked the man with his foot. Also, the protagonist twisted his arm, and with that, he knocked him to the ground. He took out a knife and, threatening to make him answer when Xu Yuan asked, he will understand if this man lies, and for every lie, he will lose one finger. The man shouted that he would say anything. The first question was a rather obvious one. Namely, where did he get his power from? But he didn't know the answer to that question. He was calculating the roof fee, and his hand suddenly exploded. He realized that the man was not lying. So the younger man asked him when it happened. The offender replied that he did not remember, and it was a lie. He was about ready to cut off one finger, but the man suddenly shouted that he remembered everything. That was a week ago, the day after the meteor shower. That day he took his younger brother with him to collect the toll. It was unexpected to hear about the meteor shower. Xu Yuan wanted to ask one last question, but he was interrupted by the little voice of a stranger that someone had beaten him to it. He didn't understand how he could not feel the presence of the man behind him. It was that white-haired guy. He recognized this man as the awakened one. But there was one thing that was bothering him. He decided to get rid of this criminal. Because he's weak. He didn't feel up to the protagonist any particular power. The stranger asked if he was an awakened person, but immediately he recalled his last memory before he died. And this man looked exactly like the one standing in front of him. Due to lack of intelligence, he didn't know superpowers existed. And that's how he died. Not only does he not understand his opponent's strength, but he also cannot determine the right way to eliminate him. However, after all the training this body has been through, it might be worth trying that technique. Since this boy is playing the silent game, then he'll check it out in his own way. Something happened in the past that earned Gu Cheng his nickname. When the Mexican drug lord Castella became the target of Gu Cheng's organization, Castella was about to flee. He was surrounded by bodyguards on all sides. But surprisingly, none of them noticed Gu Cheng's presence, when he was right in front of their noses, so the man successfully eliminated the Baron. When the bodyguards realized that something had happened, the drug lord was already dead and Gu Cheng had disappeared. But what they didn't know was that Gu Cheng was still there. He subsequently eliminated all bodyguards. That's the reason why Gu Cheng is called a phantom. He didn't even realize that this boy had completely disappeared. Not even his breathing and heartbeat could be heard. He didn't realize what this ability was. But Xu Yuan was already behind him, preparing to attack him with his knife. But the knife couldn't even wound him. He released a torrent of power. It allowed the protagonist to be pulled back. Craning his neck, he glared angrily towards Xu Yuan. He decided to pull his trick again. So that's his ability. He really is like a ghost. If that's the case, he'll show this boy his true colors. It's like they're playing hide and seek, which is really funny. This boy must hide well, because if he is found, he will not live. Xu Yuan had already gotten on his bike to leave. He just hit and ran. A white-haired man doesn't play like that. He informed me that he had decided to follow his instruction. The guy would stay in the Ling Yuan and help the spider complete the task. The man on the phone asked what made him change his mind. He explained that he met a very interesting toy here. That's why he wants to get his hands on it. He learned a lot this time, so he needs to go back and prepare thoroughly. The farther away he gets, the better, so he doesn't catch that little ghost. Li Yingying screamed to be let go. There were some cracks on his face. They have done a lot of examinations and found out that all the indicators are out of normal. They can't help, because they can't even determine the cause of the disease. But they must have missed something. The doctor replied that this was the first time he had ever encountered such a case. Li Lin inquired about the worst-case outcome in this situation. The doctor explained that if they didn't take action and restrain her, the worst-case scenario was that she would only die. Her condition was getting worse. Li Yinyin's vital signs continue to drop. In as little as 5 minutes, her heart and breathing will stop. Although there are no symptoms, her cerebral cortex is unusually active. And evidence suggests that if this activity is maintained, it will slow the decline in vital signs. He decided to take his little sister. Even if they can't help here, maybe they can elsewhere. Li Lin decided to stop him after all. They are in a state-level research center. Is there a more specialized place than this? Li Qi didn't understand how they could just wait idly. This is their little sister, after all. He punched him in the face. They still don't know what's happening to her. If they don't think things through, they could hurt her even more. He has faith in his little sister. She's definitely trying her best right now. He noticed that this guy had been holding back the whole time. His sweatshirt dug into the palm of his hand until it bled. It was like she was running from something. but some black lash was holding her back. Sis is a girl after all, and she doesn't have to do anything. She just has to be obedient and stay behind him. After all, her brother is sure to protect her. Sis is a girl and she can't handle this. They'll take care of it themselves. She was screaming to be let go. The boys were pointing their fingers at her, saying she was a girl, and why she was always competing with the boys. She can't talk. The white figure was telling her to give up because no one would save her. Yin Yin thought to herself, is she really Yin Yin? The white figure asked why she was forcing herself to do things inappropriate for a girl. Perhaps it is much simpler and happy to conform to the perceptions of this world. Only boys play in this. Girls should play with their Barbie dolls. Did she get bored? And that's why she decided to become a boy. She's the reason they have to mess around with boys. And her pulse is dropping. Her vitals are gone, which means only one thing, and that's death. They couldn't believe it. Suddenly, she heard a familiar voice in her mind. It was Xu Yuan saying that the girl was stronger than him. Her speed and strength exceeded his own. She outclasses him in every way, and with her he can only defend himself. And in battle, it doesn't matter what sex she is. Ying Ying didn't understand how she could have forgotten this. She wants to keep fighting. She wants to keep using her power to protect the people she cares about. She struck that white figure. The girl wanted to prove to the world that she could break free and become stronger. Become her true self. Lastly, the white figure noticed that Ying Ying looked truly dazzling, though the current one is still weak. But she had already found her wings. They saw the changes. The girl got out, and there were white wings behind her. They immediately ran to their little sister. 2 days of searching yielded no results. That kid hid pretty well. Polk inquired as to the identity of the person who was able to generate such strong interest after all. The white-haired man replied that he was extremely interesting. Although he obviously didn't have superpowers, he had become quiet and elusive like a ghost, and managed to slip out of his hands unharmed. Curiosity keeps him on his toes. He just can't wait to find it and explore it thoroughly. Spider thought back. Why on earth did she feel like she knew who he was talking about? Could it really be the same person? It simply couldn't be. Could it be that this person had come on a mission to Ling Yuan? He noticed that the spider's heartbeat had increased, so he wondered if she knew who the man was talking about. Sasha said goodbye to her friends. Suan also said goodbye to her. Habit is a terrible thing. Now she doesn't even notice that Xu Yuan is beside her. Previously, he had gotten on her nerves so much with his childish behavior that she had even laughed at him. But Xu Yuan's words proved true. Those people and events had turned her life upside down. She would definitely have to ask who those people were that wanted to harm her, and who was the enemy that Xu Yuan was facing. The girl started a conversation about something she wanted to ask. The protagonist held out a notebook to her, saying that she should look at this first. This seems to be a classroom problem she needs to deal with. She decided she could handle it alone, so she'll go and they'll see each other tomorrow. Sue, and will keep his notebook. Before entering the building, she called someone back. Now that she has a man helping her, she doesn't have to worry about anyone getting in the way. They will quickly pick up the girl and finish the task. There's only one goal left, so it's worth taking on the task. They destroyed the door. A sack of flour flew at them, which the white-haired guy ripped open. It was like a veil. Suddenly someone struck her, cutting her arm. This man was around, but no one felt his presence. Next, he scratched the white-haired man, after which the man kicked her. He couldn't hear a heartbeat or breathing. Could it be a little ghost? If so, he won't let it slip away again. He's bound to make him show his true colors. Because of this guy's ability, the dust evenly filled the entire space. Spider shrieked she was about to explode, and at the same second, there was an explosion. Sue both watched these and worried about Xu Yuan. 10 minutes ago, she wanted to ask him something. But first, the girl must look at it. The notebook said that it was dangerous here, and she should help him. Suan must pretend to talk to him and answer the question. She replied that this was a classroom problem that she needed to deal with. It told her to enter the building, but not to go home. She should go out the emergency exit and wait for him to come after her. She should also call 911, because that would create panic. And there was also a question there about whether Zhuang Feng is home right now. The girl replied that she could manage on her own. The boy nodded, indicating that he understood, and after she entered the building, she called 911. They did not understand why there was a sudden explosion. Someone heard the firemen say that the explosion seemed to have been caused by a gas leak. They arrived right after the explosion. It turns out that their country is powerful, because the firefighters work without delay. Obviously, his senses have not failed him. Someone is secretly watching and observing Sue, and nothing was happening yet, because the spider was waiting for help from Osiris. And that help turned out to be this guy. Sue and immediately ran up to Xu Yuan, asking about whether he was hurt. The guy replied that he was fine. He took her hand, talking about how they needed to go, as it wasn't safe here. But a slight blush appeared on her face. Not so long ago, she had so many questions. But in an instant, those questions don't seem so important at all. No matter how many times she's been to Sasha's house, it still feels like a huge fairy tale castle. Sasha came out to them, as well as another man who looked familiar. She realized that bad people had broken into Sue's house as well. So the girl immediately wanted to see if she was all right. That man looked just like the one who kidnapped Sasha, Sue, and replied that she was fine. But isn't this the man who was her kidnapper, and why is he here? Sasha replied that it was indeed him. He didn't expect the next time they met to be like this. This man's name is Bao Ji. He used to be a retired Special Forces officer, but now he is her bodyguard. Because of that case, they have specially studied Bao Zi's abilities, experience, and personality. He is extremely talented. To the Roche family, a man's past is unimportant as long as he is willing to use his power for their purposes. So they asked the man to reorganize the security team and ensure that all the people of the Roche Corporation are protected. She really had thought this through so well. Sasha replied to make them feel at home and not to be shy. There's plenty of security here, since the team was assembled by former Special Forces. They probably have a lot of experience and will be able to react quickly in an emergency. Surveillance cameras are installed everywhere, which synchronously transmit and update information at regular intervals. This eliminates the information gap. Sue asked what the guy was doing there and said to go with them already. He thinks the security system here is satisfactory and can be used for protection. However, it is still not sufficient. Bao Ji asked if he was questioning his professionalism. Sasha asked if they really wanted to compete. In that case, why wouldn't Bao Ji demonstrate the perfection of the security system by successfully catching the intruder Xu Yuan? How to pass in my case, Xu Yuan will prove to them that there are flaws in the system. She wondered which of these two would turn out to be right. He told everyone to activate the highest security level mode and then proceed to physical surveillance. The intruder is a middle school student, but don't let them think of relaxing. Everything must be at the highest level. There are enough guards, however they are concentrated in one place. The villages are not evenly distributed, and it's just a group of moving targets. He calmly dodged every guard, after which I was able to knock them out. The placement of surveillance cameras is inappropriate, which easily led to blind spots. Boss got word that the guy suddenly disappeared. He's not on the security cameras. Bao Zi replied that he was right in front of his eyes, but the boss must be joking. The cameras only show Bao Tzu. The man checked all the monitors, and there's no one in front of him. This guy really was right. The man asked his boss what was wrong with him. He wanted to see if this man could stop him. He won't let him get anywhere near Miss Sasha. Xu Yuan calmly walked away from the bullet's trajectory. He then grabbed the man's arm and was ready to strike him with his fist. Bao Ji noticed that this guy's strength and speed had gotten stronger since last time. The man wanted to strike him, but the protagonist was behind him. He immediately turned to the very spot where he was standing, but the guy was already on the other side. Xu Wen punched him with his fist, saying that he should not let their eyes deceive him. The ex-military man was destined sooner or later to be thrown ashore by time. He admitted his defeat. Zhu Yuan replied that there was no need to give up. He could still become stronger. He apologized to Miss the defense was ineffective and they are willing to accept the punishment. They will also humbly accept dismissal. Now that they know there are significant problems, wouldn't it be better to just fix them? After all, Xu Yuan also had a hard time with him. The guy replied that he did. Baoji gave thanks for those words. Even though Zhu Yuan was proven right, all of her guards were injured. It's a real headache. The man replied that their injuries were not serious, and they would recover quickly. The girl turned to him, asking if he had just said something. He understood his mistress's intention. So he pretended, talking about how they were badly hurt. For a while, they would not be able to take care of her safety. Xu Yuan didn't think that they had suffered so much because of him. Nevertheless, the responsibility lay with him. Therefore, he would temporarily be Sasha's guard. She immediately snapped her fingers and a maid arrived with her belongings. Sasha will be counting on him. Sue didn't understand how things had gotten this way. Sasha asked her to tell her father not to worry about her safety. They will take care of Xu Yuan and Su Yi. He doesn't have to look for her. So, it turns out they can have a pajama party. And also play games all night or have a bachelorette party. Sue wondered if she was getting too excited, even though she's a little old-fashioned. But thanks to these guys, she'll be able to relax a little and be free. So she is looking forward to this rare day of freedom for her. Then they will do for what Sasha wants them to do. The guy announced that he would be sleeping with them, but they threw a pillow at him, saying he was just daydreaming. They are very grateful that he has allowed them to stay with him for a while. But that doesn't give him the right to take advantage of the opportunity. It's getting late, so they're going to bed. The aunt realizes that the girls had no choice but to stay with them. But good guys don't try to sit on two chairs at once. And the main character didn't understand what that expression was at all. It sounds like the name of a physical exercise. So he asked how it was done and what the effect was. The aunt didn't understand whether he was pretending or really didn't understand. The girls were having fun in the room alone. He was now sitting outside their door. At this point, it's clear that Osiris is behind the murder of Su Yi as well as Zhuang Feng, so also that guy. Revenge led him to defeat, and he died. However, he would continue to live on as a teenager named Shu Yuan. In addition, he went back a year with the still-alive Su and also Zhuang Feng. He stayed by their side and protected them, until the spider appeared and changed everything, and through which he realized the existence of information asymmetry and intelligence. His death is connected to the awakened ones. Su's life lately is also connected with them. A spider, a guy with white hair, a burglar bomber, and Li Yin Yin's older brother. All of them are either related to or interested in Osiris. Being a mercenary, he should have encountered something like this. But why didn't it happen right up until his death? Could it be his oversight? Or is there another reason? He tends to believe that Osiris takes action in advance, taking control of the awakened or eliminating them. Well, why would Osiris need the awakened? And the world is going through some amazing changes right now, and a new era is about to dawn. But he can't see it. Perhaps what will change the world is the awakened ones. Well, then why does Osiris need Su and... After all, she's not one of the awakened. Whether or not she is not being awakened, it could mean that she has something more important than that. He doesn't care what Osiris wants. No matter how much he ponders, one thing remains the same. That because of Osiris, the awakened are coming together, and because of Osiris, Su, and as well as Zhuang Feng, have been killed. Osiris are the cause of everything. He wants to make sure that Su Yi and Huan Feng are always safe. If result-oriented, his task should be changed. And it's to deal with the source of the problems, as well as destroy Osiris. At this point, he had barely reached 50% of his strength. But it was not enough to defeat the awakened one. As long as the awakened one is a human being, he is bound to have a weakness. Even if he's just a simple man, he'll have a way too. He must destroy them. He took her by the neck. The location of the little ghost was well known to her. So why did she remain silent? The ghost she knows is called Gu Cheng. She doesn't know anything about, but if Gu Cheng didn't come to the city at all, then who the hell is that ghost that doesn't want to be in the city right now? If she fails the task twice, she definitely won't get away from that demon. Perhaps the little ghost he met is the one who thwarted her mission last time, and he is the culprit behind everything, and they move on to the next news item. He needs some gear, so he made a list. The guy asked Sasha if she could get it. There have been comforting kidnappings related to human trafficking in the city of Lin Yuan. Firearms will be hard to get, but the rest will be easy. She'll make sure it's the best. In Lin Yuan, criminals kidnapped more than 10 teenagers. Police have announced a large reward for information about the case. If they know anything, they should contact the local police immediately. Among them was Wei Bai. This boy is from their school. Could these abductions be connected to those two? What do they even want to do with these people? Meanwhile, the Wei Bai was relegated to the trash cans. They missed him so much. They couldn't wait for him to show up. They asked this little brother for a loan. He recognized the Wei Bai from his class, a man with red hair, and turned his attention to that kid and asked him if he didn't want to die. He decided to leave. But suddenly he stopped, talking about how he hated it. Wei Bai raised his finger. Other people shouted at him to quickly hand over the money, but someone threw a bag of groceries at him. Blondie decided to get this guy away. They were already being chased. They had run far enough away and they were running fast. The blonde thought he was about to die. Wei Bai replied that then they could get to him too. Isn't he afraid? In a situation like this, anyone would want to get away from it all. And who'd want to get in trouble for someone else? If there is one, he's a sick fuck. Only an idiot would worry about someone else and stick his nose into someone else's business. Wei Bai apologized and acknowledged that he was right. He asked what about this guy he hadn't seen at school in half a month. Wei Bai replied that something had happened at home, and he couldn't go to school yet. They are classmates. Also in BIE knows that in the past, the blonde has done a lot of bad things. Relying on power and his happiness was built on the pain of others. Eventually the power disappeared, and he ended up in almost the same position as him. He considered himself abandoned with no hope of rescue, but an idiot pulled him out of the swamp. And for the first time, he realized that's what it's like to be rescued. He held out a hand to help him stand up. Honestly, he's very afraid. He is afraid, painfully afraid of those bullies, and afraid of hardship. But in the bai, he saw his reflection, and couldn't pass it by. He's not a failure like himself, and there was no idiot to lend him a helping hand. So he showed his mercy and became that idiot himself, so he shouldn't even laugh at him. He'll introduce him to Xu Yuan someday. He may be an idiot, but he's a good man. He thinks they'll become friends. He will go home and Wei Bai must hurry too. But Wei Bai had returned to the very people who were after them. They didn't realize what had started to happen. Wei Bai clenched his fist. He didn't think of letting them go so easily. The white-haired guy asked, wondering if he had decided to join them. He agreed. This world needs another idiot. The spider informed him that he was paralyzed, so he should listen carefully and not try to resist. She needs a new personality to act freely, so let him consider himself lucky. She wanted to bite him already, but suddenly she saw someone's shadow. And that was Xu Yuan. Spider asked how he had tracked her down. The guy explained that he planted a bug on her. So that day at Sue's house, he was there too. And why didn't she realize it? So be it. But what made him think that by tracking her down, he'd be able to deal with her in the first place? She grabbed his head. He was able to free himself from her grip. The guy immediately decided to attack her again. She grabbed a crowbar as a weapon, but the protagonist chopped her weapon with a knife. As expected from Sasha, the knife she got is made of a special material. He was also able to hurt her. The guy grabbed her arm, after which he kicked her with his foot. She didn't understand why it was like something that was already happening. The wounded man was hiding behind boxes with a gun, talking about how it was really a real ghost. You can't see him. He could barely dodge Gu Cheng's punch. After that, the man started shooting, but he was fending off all those bullets. Gu Cheng snatched that gun out of his hands. So the guy started fighting hand to hand. Gu Cheng grabbed his arm, after which he kicked. And this time, Xu Yuan also did the same to her. This kid definitely has the power to overpower her. Then why didn't he do it on sports day? The protagonist explained that his strength and equipment was different that day than it is now. Plus, they had already fought twice before, and now he already knew her style of attack. Besides, when he's alone, you can't hold back. Spider asked who he was. Xu Yuan replied that he was only a middle school student. She asked Mr. Middle School Student what he was going to do to her. Her ability is too convenient. She can become anything. She can do things that no one else can, to the point where she can pretend to be someone close to Sue and accomplish her goal. For him, the spider's existence is a problem, so he needs to deal with her as soon as possible. She woke up in some unfamiliar place. It was amazing that she was still alive. Her hands were tied. Xu Yuan appeared and asked what her connection to Osiris was. Spider asked what he would do to her if she remained silent. That's a lot of options, but he's still gonna make her tell him. The spider must look him in the eye and answer the questions. Can't a guy even compete on who has bigger eyes? He'll run off to change his shell with bigger eyes and win for sure. She didn't realize what was wrong. Her thoughts becoming fuzzy and weakness throughout her body. I wonder if it's hypnosis. His recollection immediately showed how he had been brought bound to some place. And it was a lab. The man had something injected into his neck, but he died as a result of asphyxiation. This man also asked for help, for he was not feeling well. It ended up exploding. He watched the whole thing with horror. He was injected with something this time too. The guy couldn't breathe and it hurt a lot, but he was able to fell this researcher, after which he tasted it, and a moment later, he adopted his appearance. The others watched in amazement. He couldn't believe he'd become one himself. A man with white hair appeared in front of him and greeted the newcomer. To continue living, he had to dedicate his life to Osiris. He used his ability to gather data from around the world and find other lab rats for Osiris. Xu Yuan asked what was the name of the guy who was with her last time. She replied that it was Neon. He snapped his fingers near her face. Spider immediately woke up and didn't even think she had hypnosis skills. The guy explained that he had used the truth with his hand just in case. She asked from him if they were done with the questions. The protagonist said yes. It turns out he's going to eliminate her. So she asked if she could ask one more question. Xu Yuan replied that yes. Specifically, she inquired as to what he planned to do. He was determined to destroy Osiris. The spider would look forward to it in hell, followed by a crunching sound. The protagonist has returned home, but suddenly he felt someone was there. He immediately jumped on this man with a gun, but the guy clearly didn't expect it to be so, and he inquired as to why she was still awake when it was so late. The girl replied that she woke up and saw that he was not here, so she waited for him to come back. She asked if he had been earlier again. Shu Yuan replied that he was fine, it was just a couple of scratches. She brought a first aid kit. No matter what kind of injury it is, it needs to be treated properly. It would be bad if he got an infection in the wound. He decided not to contradict her. She also inquired if he would tell her what he was doing so late, but you could tell from his reaction that he wasn't going to say anything. He leaves in the middle of the night and comes back covered in bruises. She already has a hunch, even without his stories. In fact, she was waiting for him to take the initiative and tell her everything himself. She had been thinking a lot lately about why all these people wanted to kidnap her, what they wanted from her, and whether they would hurt her family. After exchanging blows with the Osiris over the past few days, it was obvious that their target was only Su and, in a previous life, Huanfeng's death was most likely the result of the fact that she was together with Su and, therefore, he had deliberately asked Huanfeng not to return for a while. This was to help her avoid death. Looking at his facial expression, one would assume that he knows everything, but doesn't want to say anything. She'd always been curious. Why someone she didn't know at all would be willing to go to such lengths to ensure her safety. Under his protection, it was like she was sitting in her ivory tower, while he was outside the tower, going through hell and high water to fight for it. She can't in good conscience blindly accept his protection. And she definitely can't act like she doesn't notice this myriad of danger around her. She wouldn't let him alone take all the credit. However, she also understands his silence. The enemies he faces are not enemies she might face herself. If she can't help him, then at least she doesn't want to become his burden. She will wait for the day when he feels he can tell her the whole story. Until then, he should take good care of himself. Because in her eyes, Shu Yuan is no longer just a classmate. After the spider had been missing for over 5 hours, they used satellite GPS to confirm the spider's last known location, and through specialized means they confirmed that the spider was dead. For Neon, it was unfortunate. Now that the spider is dead, it seems they have no more free people left. He was informed that Osiris would send some men to help them transfer the lab rats. In addition, he must find out who had killed the spider. Though he has no proof, his intuition tells him only one thing. I mean, he's the one who did it. Specifically a small phantom. Meanwhile, the guys were at the beach. The guys had water pistols and were ready to send them to hell. Su and shouted for him to stand where he was standing, and they all thought of attacking Shu Yuan. The protagonist grabbed the guy and covered himself with him. He doesn't want to be friends with Shu Yuan anymore. After which he jumped up high. They had to run and dodge. Shu Yuan was not supposed to hit them, but it was too slow for him. He hit 2 people. That's just impossible. I mean, they came at him in droves. How could they even lose to him? This guy has definitely gotten much stronger since the sports festival. She was covered in this sticky paint. It really wasn't a pleasant sensation. So the girl decided to go wash it off and change into seedy clothes. It was a pity that Yin Yin couldn't come this time. Sasha heard that she had some business at home, so she couldn't join them. They were approached by Shu Yuan, who asked Sasha to distract himself for a moment. It feels like the vacation schedule increases the difficulty of the mission to protect them both. It's a rash decision. Sasha all knew that it would be quite dangerous for Su, and the girl mentioned that the idea was entirely Su, and she may not know who he really is, but she knows he continues to keep a close eye on her. That's why Su asked her for this favor. And that's why she's booked this entire deserted island for them and hired some serious security. Sasha realizes that these things aren't enough to keep her completely safe. However, at least she hoped he could relax at least a little, even if it's only for a couple seconds. It got dark outside. The world he lived in was filled with wars, conflicts, and battles. Death was always waiting around the corner, ready to strike. Let your guard down for even a second and it could be the end of you. For him, putting his guard down is the same as dying. If you don't survive, you lose everything. Suddenly he heard an explosion. Could it be that Osiris had gotten here and used heavy artillery? He didn't understand why he didn't recognize the sound of this weapon or what model it was at all. The main task now was to get Su and out of here immediately. But it was just fireworks. All of them wished Shu Yuan a happy birthday. His aunt told them that today was his birthday, so they decided to take a little vacation to celebrate the day. But it's the birthday of the real owner of the body. It also belongs to a young man whose name is Shu Yuan. And Gu Cheng is not him. And this party is for him. And it couldn't be without the birthday boy. But he can't accept it. Sasha knows what he wants to say. At the moment, he is Shu Yuan. The present Gu Cheng died and the present Shu Yuan is gone. He is now the Shu Yuan. Maybe at least this way he can start a whole new life. At the very least, he should use his identity as a normal young man to relax and do what he wants. She pushed him to come down to them. This is the first time she has made a birthday cake. It's not perfect, so the girl hopes that Shu Yuan won't object. The guy replied that he was fine with it. He also thanked the SU and for all of this. They were photographed by a photographer. Sasha tasted the parfait and recognized that it was very tasty. Sue and replied that of course it was delicious, because it was a special parfait created by her hands. Sasha asked if he had changed a bit since the vacation. Sue replied that he had. He seems to be more relaxed now and not anxious like before. He also moonlighted at the cafe with her. He made an elementary mistake due to excessive worry. That's not a good thing in long battles. Fortunately, he had time to adapt to it. Otherwise, there might have been problems when Osiris appeared. He saw the would-be visitors, Sue, and told him to remember that he must show sincerity when greeting visitors. But most importantly, he must have enthusiasm. He greeted them with a stern face. The girls were startled by his gaze, after which they ran away. Sue pulled him back to the cafe. Shu Yuan asked where he went wrong, if he did exactly as Sue and his asked. It was easier to start with something he could handle. Sasha doesn't think the problem is Shu Yuan's behavior. The problem lies in the lack of a smile. In the military, they were taught that emotions can overwhelm them in the middle of the battlefield. They must remember that any bit of joy or fear can affect their decision and actions. They will only bring them closer to death. If we just put emotions aside, they can survive. The guys replied that they were clear. Sue asked to try to smile for them. When the main character smiled, he looked just like the villain's face. The girl told him to try saying cheese. He did it, but it only got worse. He was told to stop or the kids in the neighborhood would cry. Sasha offered a smile without showing her teeth. Now their fists were itching. Time kept passing, and they were getting nowhere. The girls had some ideas, but then they realized it was unrealistic. No matter how hard they tried, the result was almost the same. He'd never realized that smiling was such a difficult task. Still, Sasha has an idea left, but she doubts that it will help him in any way. But she said to tell the whole Yuan, it's worth a try. He should try to think of some happy memory from his past life. Something that makes him happy just thinking about it. But his whole past life revolved around missions and training. There was no room for happy memories. Perhaps he had forgotten about them. Su Hong kissed the picture of his darling daughter. She was getting cuter and cuter every day. Gu Cheng thought he was crazy. He showed the photo that Huan Feng sent. She is already 3 years old. Gu Cheng noticed that she also looked the same as the photo when she was 2. He still remembered when this little one had been born. She was even smaller than both of his palms. He is completely focused on the missions all the time. Looking back, he realizes that she has already learned to walk and talk. As a father, he doesn't want her to be rich and famous. He just wants her to grow up healthy and in prosperity. And also to become a strong and happy young lady. Truth be told, he really wants to be around her and see her grow up, and participate in all periods of her life, and even hand her daughter over to her chosen one. He hopes that he and his dear brother will witness its development. There was a cute little girl in the photo holding flowers. Now she's all grown up. Everything is straight, just like he said it would be. Sasha noticed the change. He smiled. Su Hang's daughter has indeed become a strong and happy young lady. She told the protagonist to make 1 large ball of milk tea with extra ice for the visitor. But Xu Yuan didn't seem to like this guy. He reached for the knife. He sat down with Sasha and apologized for interrupting her. He liked this girl, but she was also his target. Maybe she'll be his in the next life. A nail flew into her. Xu Yuan batted it away with his knife. He asked Sasha if she was in one piece. The girl replied that she was fine. He told the girls to go out the back exit and wait for him outside. Do they still think they can escape? He lifted the table to cover himself from all the nails. But they simply destroyed the table. The girls ran outside. Sui assumed that the man had attacked Sasha because he wanted to grab Sui specifically. She hoped the guy would be okay. People showed up there saying they were both in a predicament. Do these girls really need their help? They were twins. Those flimsy things won't be able to hold the penetrating power of his nails. One nail hit his hand. He asked why the man was targeting Sasha. It's her fault for getting in Osiris's way. According to their observations, the people who hang around this girl all the time are him and the young mistress. The guy's past was dim, but she's different. They have enough evidence to suspect that she is the biggest problem in the way of Osiris's great plan. Wanting the plan to go smoothly, Osiris is willing to spend time and men to remove existing and all possible obstacles to the fulfillment of his ideals. That's why she has to die. Using a knife, he removed the nail. The unidentified man asked why he was staring at him like that. The protagonist needs to calm down and observe carefully and analyze. And then anticipate. He passed the flight path of those nails, after which he struck the man with his knee. Next, Xu Yuan struck him with his fist. The man differentiated against the wall. Now he must answer just how many people Osiris has sent here. But suddenly a bullet shattered the glass behind him. The bullet hit his wounded arm, after which it hit the man's head. Meanwhile, the guy hid. Did the bastard really have eyes in the back of his head? It was unclear how he was able to dodge the sniper shot. The man asked if they had figured out the target. They responded that they have not yet, at this time. As long as they play with them. She had no control over her body. The feeling of being killed by your most loyal best friend must be an incredible sensation. She thinks the feeling of killing your best friend on your own would be even better. She didn't understand what these scumbags had done to her. How could they even control Sue, and they control her almost like a doll that moves at their will. The girl yelled for Sasha to find a way out of his grip. Let him kick her or punch her. She must do something. Sasha did it, but her body still wouldn't listen to her. She had to hurry up and think of something. Sasha accidentally hit a trash can which fell over. They didn't like the stench right away. In this way, she was able to free herself from control. Sasha didn't realize what had just happened. How dare they use her body to hurt Sasha? She won't forgive it. But her body was back under control. It can't even move a muscle. They don't need the girl's forgiveness. But suddenly garbage flew into her. She was free again. Though she's still not sure how they control the Sao, and at least one thing is clear. If when controlling Sue and they can't focus, control is immediately lost. She immediately wanted to hit her with her fist, but another girl came to her defense. She stopped that fist. But Sue didn't think of giving up so easily. She's not done yet. The girl wanted to take control of her again, but she was hit by a rock. Sasha definitely won't let them take control of Sue and again. She told Leon to get up quickly and finish this girl off. Leon replied that she hadn't had enough fun yet, but it seems like it's time to get serious. She kicked her. Now it was Sasha's turn. The sharp tip of the umbrella was pointed in her direction. Sue wanted to stop her from hitting it, but unfortunately, she wasn't in time. But suddenly a yin-yin appeared and destroyed this umbrella. Now she'll deal with them on her own. She'd better stay out of things that don't concern her. But that's as far as she's concerned. It was like they were fighting on equal footing, but there was already another girl behind her. But it apparently wasn't a big problem for her. Sue wished Yin-Yin luck. But Sasha found it strange. It was unclear what exactly she was waiting for. She remembered the moment when the girls had offered their help, but Sue refused even then. It was then that the girl touched her hand, whereupon Sue started choking Sasha. Now she wanted to touch the Yin-Yin Li. She yelled for her to duck and not let her touch herself, but she was caught. Ying-Ying didn't understand why she couldn't move. Looks like he's got another doll in his hands to mess around with. She ordered that doll to kill them. Yin-Yin immediately set her sights on Sasha, but the girl grabbed the threads. Afterward, she gathered the girls into a pile. But wasn't she under their control? After that, the girls guessed that she was also an awakened one. She immediately attacked the first one. The other immediately rushed to her defense. But even so, she was unable to escape the powerful Yin-Yin strike. The first one yelled, "Stay away from her!" Suddenly, a blinding grant fell in front of them. Because it was too bright, they closed their eyes. The blonde man began to aim, starting the countdown, and in his crosshairs he took the yin-yang. But beside him, Xu Yuan jumped out. The blonde man kicked him, but the protagonist still started attacking with the knife. If his left shoulder hadn't been injured, this brat would probably have stabbed him. He's clearly an unusual man. The injury to his left shoulder has reduced his mobility, so we need to find a way to overcome his defenses. Everyone, except this little guy, has so far been blinded by the light grenade and immobilized because of it. It's best to act quickly while he has time to do so. He needs to remove the obstacles, and then take over the target. Xu Yun wondered just how many weapons were hovering over him. He recognized that the brat was good enough, but his journey would end here. The guy immediately moved to attack him, but there was one problem. I can't believe he's okay with that, and the girl in the back could get hurt. Standing behind him were Sasha, as well as Sue, and if he ducked, the man would hook the girls. That was his plan all along. The blonde shot up, saying goodbye to him beforehand. But Li Yingying pulled him away from the bullet, blocking it. Wasn't she affected by the light grenade? Some kind of light grenade is nothing to her. He dodged her blow. There was also a Xu Yuan beside her. The blonde dodged his knife attack as well. The angle of the swing is pretty precise. He was aiming for the vital organs. Is this kid really just a regular high school kid? This man had studied martial arts before. It was his miscalculation, and one must retreat. He can't leave an awakened woman alone. Ying shouted out that it was a fragmentation grenade. She immediately rushed over to protect the kid. It was a smart decision. However, it is far from all he has. It was a smoke bomb. With her power, she was able to dispel that smoke. But the bastard fooled them, and then he got away. They couldn't go far, so the girl decided to catch up with them. But the guy stopped her. They need to back off. She agreed to take them out of here. He threw the girl to the floor. She shouted that he should have used a fragmentation grenade and blown them up. Let them rot in hell. But if those two grabbed the target without delay, he wouldn't need to go down and mop up after them. How could the mission fail like that? And they can't blow them up. After all, they shouldn't hurt the target. Looks like they screwed up again. Wrong information was given and the assassination attempt failed. They lost 2 of their men. Based on the information I've received, nothing provided agrees with reality. Especially this little guy named Xu Yuan. His reaction, reasoning, and actions are completely different from an ordinary high school student. It felt like he was an experienced special forces agent. This Xu Yuan is definitely an unusual high school student. They might have had discrepancies from the beginning. This is a person far more dangerous to their organization's plan than that girl. This report is pretty interesting. Could this really be the little phantom? The lower right rib is SU and fractured in 3 different places. There are also minor cracks on the bone. The hospital has already given her the treatment she needs, and she will soon recover after some rest. Right now, she was still unconscious. Sasha asked the leopard and his squad to secure the perimeter. If anything happens, they'll know about it right away. After what happened, she feels that they realize that the main obstacle in the execution of their plan is not Sasha, but him. An attempt to eliminate the target failed, and another person showed up to interfere with their plans, and that's Xu Yuan. To guarantee their mission, they will order the removal of all interference without delay and seize the Sioux, and they can take action and talk to the top. Aside from this brat, it looks like the target has a strong awakening on her side. Dealing with her power would be a challenge. He would like to request more people for support, and the sooner the better. The sooner they get the target, the sooner they can complete the plan. Osiris will send reinforcements here within the next 24 hours. When they arrive, they will make their move. He's sure to catch the little phantom this time. Timer starts 24 hours. Simply put, his tasks are rapidly becoming much more difficult. First, he needs to heal his wounds. It is necessary to calculate everything far in advance, and they cannot rush. He understands it all perfectly. Ying wondered why on earth these people were targeting Su Yi so hard. They are ready to send a mob after her. Actually, she has a strong hypothesis about that. It may be that the reason they are targeting Su, and because it too is awakened like Yin. And yet because of certain circumstances, the power of Su and has not yet been revealed. She even speculated that they could find out what kind of power the girl would master. That's the only explanation why they aim to capture Su, and Ying's body could be used for further testing. After all, they had found superpowers in her body. If Su really does have such, they could reveal them through experience. No matter if the trial would show that she had powers, he still has to take the initiative and deal with them before their next year. He changed his clothes and wanted to leave, but suddenly he felt a hand behind him and hit her. But the guy didn't understand how on earth he was able to block that punch. Li Qiqi replied, as the bloody little guy hit with all his might. Xu Yuan acts hastily again. Sasha knew she would want to take the initiative, so as usual chose to go alone, to destroy them. But such an action was too risky, so she found people to stop him. Ying wanted to go with him, but it's too dangerous. She must obey her brother and not go. The girl promised Xu Yuan that she would protect him, and the promise hasn't changed since then. And now that she has gained enough strength, she intends to keep her promise until the very end. If the brothers go with her, it would be completely against military regulations. It's not something that can make them just let their little sister go. He asked not to put the brothers in a predicament. He learned the details from Sasha, and he disagrees with the plan. If they try to stop the kid, he'll figure out a way to get away from them. He will infiltrate their base and destroy everything there. Xu Yuan might not destroy the entire base, but at least he can temporarily stop them from trying to take possession of Su, and the old him might have been able to do that, but in his current state it's not so easy. Sasha had told him earlier. Li Ling and Xu Yuan are different as individuals, but as far as their goals are concerned, they are the same. If he wants to destroy Osiris, wanting to protect someone, at the same time Li Ling wants to do justice to Osiris and complete the task given by his country. They are both trying to destroy Osiris for their own purposes. Their methods may differ, but the end result is the same. None of this has to go against military regulations. And for their common purpose, he wants to join forces for the joint dispensation of Osiris. He glanced at Sasha. The girl nodded. After which, the guy looked at the outstretched hand in front of him. They clapped their hands for a common goal. Timer counter, 20 hours. Advanced medicine. Timer counter, 19 hours. If Xu Wen had planned to advance alone, then he was also fairly certain of their location. So Li Lin inquired as to their whereabouts. If you gather all the various options and analyze the available information, then they are located in one place. They should be somewhere on the west side of town between the 5th and 6th rings. I have 3 locations in mind. One is part of the underground parking lot of a shopping mall. The second is an abandoned factory. The third is a logistics warehouse. They could be in one of those locations. Isn't that just an assumption after what happened? Li Lin calmed him down. He has his own methods of testing theories. The more specific the location, the more prepared they will be. Her brother also has superpowers. He can see something of a person's future. He can also lock onto future targets at any moment. It is unbelievable that there is a surveillance device in the person. Still, all of this requires a few conditions. Her brother must know the appearance and who he is focusing on. So to set the conditions, their best opportunity is to start with those twins. That girl is cute, but when you think about it, her body has been modified to this extent. These scumbags are out of line. He used his ability. After that, he saw a girl sitting on a chair. Judging by the surroundings, it looks more like an abandoned factory. Looking outside the window, he can't see any residential or commercial buildings. Given the layout of Lingyuan City, geographically only the western part fits the description. He also saw the very children who had disappeared from the city. They're all drugged to the point of losing the ability to think. They must be moving under normal orders. They could use them to eliminate this man. The blonde knows what she's thinking, but it's best not to do anything stupid unless she wants to die. Does she really want to screw this up again? As long as they catch his little phantom, sacrificing little guinea mice isn't such a big deal. Suddenly, his ability was interrupted. He was able to determine that they were northeast, inside an abandoned factory. Xu Yuan asked what he saw and who was there. Advanced medicine. Based on the location in the structure as well as the information available, they need to divide into 2 groups. The 3 of them will come in straight from the main walkway to get their attention. In the meantime, he'll come in from the back and infiltrate the base and wipe out as many of the remaining units as possible. If things don't go according to plan, they have to act on their own discretion. But Lin thought this operation looked wrong. In this plan, he would take full responsibility for the most problematic part. Doesn't he, Xu Yuan, trust them? He trusts these guys, but just made a decision based on the combination of their powers. There are a dozen missing on location that are most likely under enemy control. They must be deadly, but their powers are still unclear. Their presence is the biggest aid to the plan. Consequently, if they take a heavy load, they can probably save some of the hostages. And it will also focus the attention of Osiris, confusing them, making them make bad decisions. If that's the case, she wants to go with him. But the guy said no. Her power is greater than any of them. She is the core of this team. Under the cover of her brothers, she'll be able to use her power to its fullest. That's why it's better for her to team up with her brothers and rescue the hostages. For him, only by working alone is it possible to achieve maximum effectiveness as a soldier. And by doing so, give them a significant advantage. Only in this way will they have a chance of destroying this gathering of Osiris. Even if they do, they still can't let a guy go into the jaws of the lion alone. Based on the operation, they will put Osiris in a vice. If all goes as planned, they will eventually meet. Because of the fact that they split into 2 teams, Osiris will be in a predicament. They can grab the advance team, or they can attack the guy, or give up and retreat. If the decisions of Osiris are going to be dispersed, then the forces must be stretched as well. As long as one side can deal with the enemy quickly, they can help each other. He uses the tactic, divide and conquer. In theory, if the guy were to operate from the rear, this operation was fully operational. However, he had to consider the possibility of failing, but he was confident that he would not fail. Sasha turned her attention to herself, talking about getting their gear ready. Li Qiqi noticed that this was top-grade equipment. An ordinary army platoon would never be able to touch such high-end equipment. Bao Zi explained that this was just the beginning. They had also prepared the best transportation like that waiting outside. The young mistress had arranged everything in advance. He immediately turned to Sasha and the girl told him not to worry. She would take care of her friend properly, but he has to promise to be careful. The guy can't overdo it. He promised her that. Their plans have been watched before too. Timer counter, 17 hours. They arrived at an abandoned building. Timer counter, 14 hours. The guy reported that he was in position. The operation has begun. They paid attention to it. He started shooting at the car, but those shots did nothing. Who would have thought they would break in like this? Neon struck a blow to the car. There was gasoline. He then fired a shot and the car exploded. After the explosion, 3 people showed up. They moved at once to attack them. A man with white hair cut off this phantom's arm. That's where the missing kids were standing. The blonde explained that it was the awakened one they had encountered yesterday. She was with that Xiu Yuan. However, what worried him was how they were able to find their temporary base. And where is Xiu Yuan now? But this guy's already here. Li Qi jumped at him to attack, but he just flipped that man over. He decides to go look for the little phantom, and these guys he leaves to the blonde. Also, he should not be afraid to use the awakened, because the main thing is to kill the invaders. Li Ling reported that there was a change in plan. He revealed that the white-haired guy was heading towards him. The protagonist replied that he understood everything. He realized which white-haired guy was being talked about. Xu Yuan hadn't fully figured out his potential yet and shouldn't be thrown at him recklessly. Suddenly, he is attacked by some black thing. He immediately increased the distance between them. A hooded kid showed up there. We can't stall him and need to lure him out of here. Otherwise, when that man arrives, the protagonist will be at a severe disadvantage. He decided to conceal and minimize his presence, and then strike as the opportunity arose. The guy reported that the man was missing, but suddenly a black whip grabbed him by the leg, after which he threw the protagonist into a wall. He didn't understand how this kid could have noticed him. Could it have something to do with his power, but what is it about? It seems that when he hid in the shadows, he immediately fell into his trap. This power is very problematic. He lifted the guy up, whereupon this stranger took off his hood, and it appeared to be Wei Bai. As soon as he saw the face of the main character, he asked why it was him. The third high school Lin Yuan. In every school, there are people who are called sheep. The sheep exist only for the amusement of the strong students. These sheep are being sacrificed to keep the rest of us safe. Wei Bai was one such sheep. He stood in wear and tear, wondering why on earth it was him. What had he done to deserve unfair treatment? Once he saw that he wasn't the only one, at that moment, something strange and distorted began to change in his mind. As long as he remembered that there were other people like him, he began to feel that his life was not so painful. They lived in the shadows of tens of thousands of comrades in misfortune. They are so weak that they don't even have the strength to stand up for themselves. In the end, silence and patience became the only consolation. And then one day, he had the power. He became awakened, and he used that power to kill people. But he never stopped drowning in the void, until that moment when someone reached into that suffocating darkness full of despair and pulled him out of there. It was as if he had been reborn and felt the joy of salvation. He then used his power to help the man who had saved Wei Bai. At that moment, he began to feel that he was no longer a sacrificial sheep. So he wanted those bullies to feel what it means to be sacrificed. It turns out he is the high school student they were talking about, namely, Xu Yuan. Guns also appeared on his shoes. He tried to cut those whips, but he couldn't do that. It's not like he can escape his own shadow. The black whip struck him. Wei Bai wished he could feel the despair of being killed by his own shadow. This time, it was his own shadow that let him down. He'll just make it disappear. It is, after all, a modified light grenade that can emit light for up to 10 seconds. But it's enough. He got free. After which, the main character immediately struck Wei Bai with his elbow. Wei Bai wanted to stop him with shadows, but the protagonist has struck again. Also, Xu Yuan pointed out that without his shadows, he was nothing. Wei Bai told him to shut up, since he's not even awakened. He has no strength, since he dared to go against them at all. It's very easy to trash someone like this guy who relies on extraneous forces. He can never beat them. A shadow appeared behind him, but Xu Yuan found himself behind Wei Bai. As long as Wei Bai is human, he will definitely be able to do it. Zhu Wen decided to knock him out. He didn't understand why he had lost after such power had fallen into his hands. After that, the guy fell down. Xu Wan's wound opened. He quickly had to hide because he's here. That white-haired guy, he was standing near the Wei Bai. He decided to continue their last meeting with a little game of hide-and-seek. This little phantom is quite fun to deal with. Timer counter, 12 hours. He ordered these 3 men killed. The girl clapped her hands together, after which the ground would lift, began to shake. The boy, on the other hand, decided to clamp down on them. He was immediately attacked by the Li Yin Yin. A girl appeared behind the boy. She sent out a sound wave attack. Showed Yin Yin was covering up, he shot her. The bullets hit her, but they thankfully didn't do anything to her. The man realized her gear was bulletproof. Hiding behind your minions is too cowardly. Let him come out and fight her like a real man. What a rare opportunity. Finally, he can try to fight against a group of awakened ones. He left a snatch on Li Ling and Li Yingying. The girl also immediately rushed after him. With his weapon, Li Qi struck the boy and girl. Afterward, the man planted his sister right at the enemy's door. She was ready to strike that blonde man again. He decided to defend himself with some more children. But from behind, it appeared to be completely open. He wanted to shoot, but was prevented from doing so. Yingying replied that he shouldn't even think about it. Meanwhile, Li Qi was dealing with those kids. Li Ling noticed that even though they were outnumbered, they still couldn't resist the cohesiveness and coordination of the Li family. He jabbed something into his neck. He's been outclassed and he has nothing to say about it. But they're not naive enough to think that. Defeating him means defeating these awakened ones. Suddenly those kids' eyes turned red after he pressed something. He thought these kids would calm down after they dealt with this man. But it seems taking out the leader isn't the most necessary action in this situation. You could say that the battle has just begun. 3 guys threw themselves at these kids. Sasha said they had to be on full alert. They need to step up security measures because they need to protect the SU and... But a man arrived and informed the lady that there was bad news. Sue and knocked out their men and escaped on her own. Timer counter 11 hours. Neon was right behind him. The little ghost is definitely running fast. He walked over to where the main character was supposedly, but there he noticed a shrapnel bomb, after which there was an explosion. The shrapnel bomb alone isn't enough to deal with Neon. At least it'll get him off his ass. He didn't realize it was such a strong shockwave. A Neon appeared behind him and found him. Xu Yuan immediately increased the distance between them. He summoned new air currents, also white hair. Guys hoping for an eye he'll like. These air currents began to hurt Xu Yuan. He pulled out a knife and began to defend himself against the Neon's attacks. He let out a sharp stream of air. This attack also injured Xu Yuan. Neon then sent an even bigger attack at him than the previous one. It was the attack that broke through the wall. They heard it too. He was lying wounded. Neon thought his air cannon should have destroyed him, but fortunately, he was still alive. Truly, if that combat knife didn't take half the impact, it would be the end. Looks like he underestimated this kid. And he had thought that Xu Yuan would be able to entertain him a little longer. Li Yingying immediately rushed to his aid, but the girl wouldn't let her do it. He told that kid not to overdo it, but he can't do without it. He was also jumped on by a guy. Li Lin was also busy, and suddenly there was one last hope. Neon dodged that attack, whereupon Suan swung her leg. From Xu Yuan's face, one could tell that he did not expect to see her here at all. He was clearly delighted. The guy with the stern face asked why she had come here. She's not the kind of person who will stand idly by when things like this happen behind her back. She can't sit back and watch these guys get hurt because of her. Plus, she needs to find out why these people are after her. That's why she fights. The guy wondered if she wanted to know exactly the real reason for hunting her down. She was his mom. She was also the only parent body for all the awakened ones. Behind him were the failing hoods of his parents' body. The parent's vital signs are slowly declining. Within about 10 or 15 days, the parent will begin to die from complete body dysfunction. But it's okay. The parents' bodies have already been reported to the most successful and perfect creature. That's enough. He's just the result of many failures to gain new superpowers. But they still need more awakened people to move forward in terms of revolution. They should consider another plan. Wanting to increase the production of awakened ones, they used a different method. They took his body's genes and injected them into the bodies of lab rats. Then in the process, they subjected them to mutation within their bodies in order to obtain superpowers. The boy watched another failure. He recognized that it was a brilliant idea. But not everyone could survive the side effects of suddenly mutating their genes. Even though they have already diluted the solution, it still can't change the gene rejection reaction. What other method can they test? Experiments still continued, but the production level of the awakened remained low. Thus, the revolutionary plan still continued to stand still. Before he showed up, at that moment he felt somehow strange, and yet the sensation was familiar. After a while, he finally realized. It was the same aura. He tried everything to find out something about this man, but his personality exceeded his expectations. He realized he had to get him. When that man was on a certain mission, he pulled a little trick. Gu Cheng said to leave without him, because he was seriously injured. He won't be able to run far away. Su Hang will not leave this comrade behind. There was an explosion, after which Su Hang threw Gu Cheng away. A white-haired guy stood in front of him. He wanted to enjoy this game to the fullest. They clashed in battle. A man walked in on them. Neon reported that he had found the second awakened one, someone behind him. They took genes from this man and did various experiments. However, they found out that his military was much stronger than they had imagined, because his awakened genes acted as a neutralizing agent to produce other awakened ones. That is, his genes neutralized the rejection reaction. Thanks to this man's genes, the production of awakened ones began to rise. Thanks to the serum from his mutated genes, they were able to create many awakened ones, and he gained many mates. But only this man makes him feel an aura similar to his. Only he can be his true mate. The death of a test subject can occur due to the loss of viability of its cells. If the serum loses that viability, it would mean that the functional genes for the special properties are gone. If they use a new batch of real awakened ones, there is a risk of a renewed rejection reaction, causing the death of many more people. They need to find another test subject with the same genetic trait as this subject. He knew the man had a daughter. They should send someone to catch her. Also, she has to be alive. That's the reason they're after her. So those tears he encountered that day on the mission, they were all failures. It's too much. But tears came to her eyes. She couldn't believe it at all. Its existence is necessary. Neon wanted to take her with him so she could be reunited with her father, but his hand was stopped by Xu Yuan. So he was the one who killed Su Hong. He made the same mistake again. Gu Cheng was the most capable soldier he had trained in his entire career. The man asked if he had forgotten the important things he had taught him. Gurchenko replied that emotions can affect the course of a mission, or even cost a life. Also, since the instructor picked him up, he has completely let go of all his emotions. He didn't convey his instructor's expectations. He always completed the mission without a single mistake. Until then, one mission that looked easy ended in an ambush that later led to countless deaths of comrades. And among them was Su Hang. They couldn't believe he survived such a huge explosion. This buddy's a lucky guy. His life was worth a Su Hang. If it wasn't for the Su Hang, he wouldn't be standing here right now. His expression didn't change even after he came back. He probably doesn't even feel it, unfortunately. He probably doesn't even care about all the lives lost. This guy is just a killing machine with no emotions. He betrayed Su Hangul just to save his life. But that's not what happened. He didn't know how he should express the sadness and guilt that lay on his heart. He didn't know how to deal with this fierce feeling of helplessness. But it wasn't until Su Hang's family suffered that Gu Cheng realized his death wasn't as simple as he thought. His sadness turned to motivation. He decided to let go of his rage and find the truth. He decided to be patient and wait for his chance. Bit by bit over the course of a year, he finally found out the truth. And he finally got his chance. He went against command orders and invaded an enemy base alone. He relayed that he refused to follow orders. That was the mistake he made. So this is Su Hang's killer. He was furious. Neon didn't understand what the hell had just happened. The boy's aura had suddenly changed. He informed the girl that he would not be able to protect her this time. His mind is completely blank. He can only hear his heart beating and his breathing. He doesn't even feel the pain of his frames. In such a situation, he must calmly reason and analyze and then make decisions. Common sense, experience, orders. None of those things could enrage him now. But he also began attacking it with wind blades. There was only one thing he wanted at the moment. Li Yinyin shouted out Xu Yuan's name. He wanted revenge for Su Hang. Neon sent more wind blades at him, and he made the same mistake again. But he has nothing to regret. He saw a trajectory to dodge those wind blades, and he immediately began to follow it. He got close to the Neon, ready to kill it, but with his power he destroyed his weapon. But still, Xu Yuan was able to injure him. Retribution has begun. Timer counter, 10 hours. This guy is so badly injured, it's not clear how he even has the strength to move. Also, that look is really annoying. He can see the evasive trajectory again. Does he really think that's the end of it? But he didn't care about all those blades. Neon dodges a lunge with a knife, and yet he was able to strike a blow for the protagonist. This guy doesn't know his own limits. Until his revenge is accomplished, he will never go. Then the white-haired guy will just send him to hell. Xu Yuan dodged his fist. Su An also decided to thwart him. She apologized for acting like a burden. She can't accept what he just said. She refuses to believe that her father is dead. Be that as it may, she doesn't want to see these guys hurting anyone. She also understands the purpose of coming here. After this place is over, she'll thoroughly investigate her father. So she asked for the opportunity to help him in this battle. Xu Yuan told her to fight and not hold back. Let her leave the rest to him. The girl kicked him with her foot. Neon noticed that he had disappeared again. Xu Yuan appeared. Then she plunged the knife into his arm. Su-Yuan also struck him. They're just digging their own graves. He aimed those blades at her. She immediately remembered the very moment when Su-Yuan had told her to concentrate and focus on the visible. She must think of a way to avoid the tennis balls. She mentally calmed herself and began to avoid those blades. She used a technique called toasting the king. Even though he can't kill that girl, but he's allowed to cripple her and immobilize her. Zhu-Yuan immediately took it from there, after which he threw it back. This blow he took on himself. But he can't back down. He held the knife with his mouth, after which Zhu-Yuan slashed his opponent with it. The death timer counter kept shrinking. Neon couldn't believe it. Did he really lose to someone like this kid? After which he dropped dead. Neon Gil Leifer died of blood loss. Su-Yuan immediately ran up to Zhu-Yuan. His wounds are very severe. They need to get her boyfriend to the hospital. The very kids with the red eyes were standing on that one. Li Qi punched his opponent. Li Ling noticed that the tranquilizer wasn't working. Li Yingying also fought. Do they not feel pain or fatigue at all? Su Yi as well as the injured Zhu-Yuan were surrounded. She shouted Su and take Zhu-Yuan and run. She didn't know how to act or what she should do. Could she really not do anything? After all, she was still ballast to the others. If she was stronger, then she would definitely be able to protect everyone. Zhu-Yuan can't move. Did he really fail the mission? Su and mentally asked her father what she should do. But it was as if Su Hang had embraced the two of them. She noticed her father's figure. He was smiling as usual. There was a bright stream of energy around her. This village disarmed all the children. Li Qi didn't realize what had just happened. Could it be another awakened one? The girl seemed to glow. His consciousness is fading little by little. The timer counter stopped ever shorter. It was so dark and noisy. He could only hear them shouting his name. Every bone in his body shattered. Torn arteries, damage to internal organs, and massive blood loss. They need to stop the bleeding. The doctor has ordered blood to be carried, because they need to start transfusions. But the damage is too severe. They can't stop the blood loss. Death timer counter. 2 hours and 54 minutes. He only wondered where Su and... He was glad she was okay. His mission is complete. It's so good that she's okay. His heart stopped. The doctors injected adrenaline. The girls really hoped he could survive. Li's family had hoped so too. They were running an operation. The death timer counter is 3 seconds. The death timer counter is 2 seconds. The death timer counter is 1 second. The death timer counter is 0 seconds. In the black space, Gu Cheng met Zhu-Yuan. Gu Cheng apologized for taking his body. The day he'd met him and what he'd experienced that time had been the final straw for him. He had come to terms with the reality that his parents were dead and the fact that he was being bullied at school. He wasn't strong enough to overcome all of this. He had thought about committing suicide before, but he didn't have the courage. Gu Cheng's appearance and being replaced by him was the first time Zhu-Yuan felt free. He thanked his Gu Cheng for that, after which he went to his parents' house. Gu Cheng wanted to stop him, but suddenly someone grabbed his shoulder telling him to stop rushing forward. It was Su Hang. They really hadn't seen each other for a long time. Afterward, they noticed that the Zhu-Yuan had disappeared. Su Hang asked if he had met his wife and daughter, and whether they were well. Gu Cheng replied that they were. The man was sure his wife was even more beautiful than she was, and even his little girl got cuter. All the while, the protagonist was agreeing with him. Now that he knows they are doing well, he can rest easy. He thanked the Gu Cheng for keeping her safe all the time. Thanks to him, she was now safe and sound, and could continue to grow in peace. He pushed the Gu Cheng. Su Hang doesn't want to leave, and he still has a story to tell. But it's time for Gu Cheng to go back. He must live. Let him just live the life that is his. He also offered to meet again when he was 70 or 80 years old and unable to move. His eyes began to clear. He couldn't believe he was still alive. The girls were glad he was finally awake. 7 days later, while he was unconscious, a lot of things happened. Li's family summoned their men to take action, cordoned off the temporary base, and captured the remnants of resistance, and rescued the hostages. The hostages taken hostage by Osiris turned out to be teenagers who had disappeared earlier. They were reunited with their families with the help of the Li family. Also, the family of Li interrogated the remnants of Osiris. Although the process was not very successful, they eventually revealed Osiris' plans. Osiris wants to exterminate the weak gene pool and develop a high-quality one, thus creating a new generation of super-strong humans. At the same time, based on the testimony of the remaining members of Osiris, they found an enclosed space to the abandoned factories that contains a horrific sight. The existence of such abnormal forms shows the insanity and distorted motives behind the schemes of organization. Because of this dire situation, a wave of anxiety arose throughout society. The country set out to eliminate Osiris, joining with other countries to achieve the goal. Not only has the country offered a reward for Osiris, but they've also set up a superpower research facility. They are recruiting volunteers to study people with superpowers. A law has also been passed to restrict and protect these people. From the information obtained from the interrogations, it appeared that Su Hang had died after losing his experimental significance. Therefore, his body was completely destroyed. A funeral was held as a formality. By the tomb of Su Hang, Osiris is still not completely destroyed. But after the incidents that have occurred, they should temporarily stop trying to take any action against his daughter. He keeps on protecting Su and from any threats, therefore Su Kang may not worry. After which he decided to leave. But he clearly didn't expect to see himself near Su Hang's grave right now. He only passed by Gu Cheng. Gu Cheng wondered why this guy was emitting an aura similar to him. After the guy left the cemetery, someone yelled his name. There stood Su and also Sasha. He remembered Su Hang's words, that he should live the life that belonged to him. He looked back at the cemetery and spoke the name Su Hang. Gu Cheng was still there. He promised to live and make a fresh start. The end.